Hello, hello, you magnificent globetrotters and dawn-show adventurers. Mira here, practically vibrating with excitement today. You know, this past week, I decided to try extreme hiking, which apparently means getting gloriously lost on a very flat trail. Oops, I ended up making friends with a very confused squirrel who probably thought I was offering him directions to the nearest acorn festival. My compass was pointing north, south, east, and definitely not where you want to go.
Extreme hiking, Mira. More like extreme squirrel whispering, I imagine. My week involved an even more perilous journey, the one from my bed to the coffee machine without tripping over my own feet. Ouch! A true testament to human endurance, if you ask me. But hey, at least I didn't try to use a squirrel as a compass. Whoa, welcome back, everyone. Leo, fully caffeinated and ready to navigate some serious global questions with you.
You know, Leo, some of us prefer a little spontaneous adventure to just surviving the morning. But today's adventure is for all of you out there, whether you're dreaming of a big move, planning a once-in-a-lifetime trip, or maybe even wondering if you'll find your soulmate from a new corner of the world. We're diving deep into a comparison that might surprise you, unraveling the threads of two incredibly distinct nations, Guatemala and Syria. Wow.
That's right. Forget those quick which is better TIK docs. We're getting into the nitty-gritty here, peeling back the layers to reveal what truly makes Guatemala and Syria unique. Oh, many of you might be asking which country resonates more with my adventurous spirit, or what are the practical realities of living there. We're here to answer those burning questions and more. If you're considering a big change from moving to even marrying someone from one of these countries.
Absolutely. We're talking everything from vibrant cultural landscapes to daily life nuances, and we promise to give you the clearest picture possible. Oh, you'll discover which one might feel like home, or at least inspire your next big leap. This podcast is designed to be your compass, helping you make informed decisions, whether you're packing your bags or just expanding your horizons from your living room. And as always, this global exploration is made possible by the incredible team at Jet Off AI, who help us connect these amazing stories to you.
Indeed, Jet Off AI ensures we're all on the right flight path, even if Mira's squirrel whispering takes us off course. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button. It's like sending us a virtual coffee. Oh, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most intriguing places. You might just find the answer you didn't even know you were looking for. Let's get started.
Picking up on our last conversation, let's dive into a topic that weighs heavily on anyone considering travel or relocation: general safety and crime rates. And for today's comparison, we're looking at two countries with very different stories, Guatemala and Syria. Guatemala, with its breathtaking landscapes and ancient Mayan ruins, often gets overshadowed by headlines about its crime rates. You hear about its crime rates. You hear about its vibrant culture, but then there's the other side, right? The warnings about petty theft in tourist hotspots and urban centers.
Aware of your surroundings, Mira, and perhaps your wallet's surroundings. It's like a thrilling mystery novel where the local gangs are the unexpected plot twist. Oh, you go for the colorful markets and picturesque volcanoes. And sometimes you end up in a real-life chase scene. Ooh. It's all part of the authentic experience, right, Ga? Right, though, I'm certain our listeners who've explored Guatemala will tell us about the warmth of its people in the comments after they secure their belongings, of course.
Well, Leo, you always find a way to make even the gravest topics sound like a movie pitch. Ah, but you're right. The situations are vastly different. In Guatemala, despite the serious challenges of gang violence and poverty-driven crime, particularly in larger cities like Guatemala City, there are still pockets of immense beauty and resilient communities. Tourists flock to places like Antigua, Lake Catalan, and Taikul, and while they're advised to take precautions, those areas generally manage to maintain a relatively safer atmosphere.
Common sense is a good start, Mira, but sometimes a good lock on the door is even better. For Syria, pockets of peace are more like pockets of quiet before the next explosion. Ouch. Ouch. It's not exactly a postcard destination for a relaxing stroll, unless you're into dodging debris and historical reenactments that are. It's a truly heartbreaking reality. The concept of the ongoing conflict, instability, and pervasive threats from verity.
Okay, fair point, Leo. You're not wrong at all. The scale of risk is incomparable. While Guatemala battles socio-economic factors that fuel its crime, Syria is caught in a profound humanitarian crisis. But even in the direst situations, the human spirit finds ways to survive. I'm not saying it's safe to visit Syria now, not at all, but the stories of resilience from its people are incredible. It makes you think about how lucky we are sometimes, our dear listeners, to discuss safety as a comparative choice rather than an everyday battle for survival.
Resilience is excellent, Mira, but it's often born out of circumstances no one should have to face. It's like saying this rusty old car is resilient because it still starts, despite having no brakes. Guatemala's authorities do try to address crime, and you'll find tourist police in popular areas, which is a step. However, the systemic issues persist. If you're planning a trip there, researching specific regions and consulting current travel advisories is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And that's crucial for both, isn't it? Even with the stark differences, staying informed is key. For Guatemala, our Jet of AI site offers some solid, updated security information, far more practical than my daydreams of alien soup. And for Syria, it's about understanding the almost absolute do not travel warnings, primarily for humanitarian and security reasons. So listeners, if you're curious for details, head over there.
Precisely. It's a stark reminder that safe is a relative term depending on if you're comparing it to, say, a quiet library or a badger's nest. For Guatemala, local crime rates mean vigilance is necessary. But for Syria, it's a whole other level of danger that makes leisure travel virtually impossible. Well, if you're looking for an adventure, you might choose the slightly less perilous path.
It's about being informed and making choices that align with your safety priorities. Both countries, despite their very different challenges, remind us how precious and varied the concept of safety truly is around the world. We really want to know what you think about these differing safety landscapes. So, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button if you found this insightful and drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Alright, so let's move on to political stability and social harmony. And honestly, for the countries we're discussing, it's quite the roller coaster. I always try to find the bright spots, you know. Like, even amidst challenges, people often find incredible ways to build communities and support each other. It's like a spontaneous, unscripted dance number of resilience.
Dance number, you say? More like a chaotic mosh pit if you're talking about trying to decipher the whole landscape of, say, Guatemala. You've got, what, a few decades of civil conflict and then the lingering echoes of it all. It's not exactly a tranquil tea party. Finding stability there is less about a dance and more about not tripping over the ever-present political potholes. I'm certain that our listeners living there can probably tell us a few stories about that.
Whoa. You're making it sound like everyone's constantly walking on eggshells. But even with historical tensions, Guatemala has a vibrant indigenous culture, and many communities operate with their own deep-rooted social harmony. It's not always dictated by the capital's headlines. Think of the colorful markets and the strong family ties. It's a different kind of strength, wouldn't you say? Ew.
Sure, Mira, strong family ties are lovely, but sometimes those ties are what spark the internal debates in the first place, no? It's like when my aunt and uncle get together, all that harmony goes out the window once the board games come out. On a more serious note, though, understanding the blend of traditional governance and modern political shifts is not just about the headlines, it's about the undercurrents, the whispers in the coffee shops.
Well, speaking of undercurrents, let's talk about Syria for a moment. Wow, it's a country that's faced immense, truly heartbreaking challenges. My heart goes out to everyone there. But even in such profound adversity, the human spirit for rebuilding and connecting is amazing. There are stories of art and culture flourishing in unexpected ways, of neighbors helping neighbors despite everything. It's a testament to the fact that social harmony isn't just about government, it's about the people.
Indeed, Mira. The human spirit is certainly resilient, often absurdly so. Syria is a place where political stability has become almost a theoretical concept for many years. When you're dealing with different factions and international involvement, harmony isn't exactly the word that springs to mind. From a traveler's perspective, and I'm one who enjoys good luck finding it. It's less about finding a stable political system and more about understanding the complex tapestry of local power dynamics.
Oops, you're so cheeky, Leo. I think it's important to remember that even in places like Syria, where official stability is a struggle, daily life still has its rhythms. People find ways to celebrate, to marry, to learn. It reminds me of those incredible ancient cities that have seen so much history. The people are part of that living history. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Right, daily rhythms. Like the rhythm of trying to navigate complex administrative hurdles. I imagine social harmony in some regions there might just be defined as no one's actively shouting at each other right now. For anyone considering long-term stays or even just a visit, which, let's be honest, is a very different proposition for these two countries, understanding the real politic is paramount. It's not just about reading a government's press release, it's about reading a government's press release, it's about reading a government's press release.
Wow, you're really good at finding the humor in the most intense situations, Leo. But seriously, whether it's Guatemala's democratic evolution or Syria's incredible resilience, what stands out is the deep cultural pride in the efforts, often grassroots, to maintain a sense of identity and community. It's not easy, but the human desire for connection is universal.
Connection, yes, that's what we aim for. Even if it's just connecting our listeners to the stark realities. For those who want to dig deeper into the actual, tangible impacts of these dynamics on daily life, from safety to legal frameworks, for expats or even just curious minds, you can always check out Jeddah Faye's extensive resources. They've got the data that my sarcasm usually skips over.
Speaking of connecting with different cultures, let's zoom in on something truly foundational: the economic conditions and cost of living. We're talking Guatemala and Syria today, to places with vastly different stories when it comes to your wallet's happiness.
Happiness for your wallet, Mira? My wallet usually just cries quietly in a corner after any trip. But you're right. These two countries offer a masterclass in economic contrasts. Let's look at how your daily spending or lack thereof would play out.
Exactly. So, starting with Guatemala, imagine a vibrant market, colorful textiles, the smell of fresh coffee in the air. For a traveler or someone considering a move, the cost of living there, especially outside of Guatemala City, can be incredibly gentle on the budget. You can find delicious, Local food for just a few quetzals. Wow, it feels like your money goes on an extended vacation.
Oh, an extended vacation for the money. My money usually just works overtime. But you're right. In Guatemala, if you're earning in, say, euros or dollars, you're practically living like royalty. Just, a royalty that still has to haggle for avocados. I've heard stories of expats living very comfortably on a fraction of what they'd spend back home. Of course, most of those jobs are in specific sectors like in GOS or local opportunities.
Oh, that's true. And the informal economy there is so rich. It's like a constant treasure hunt. You're always finding unique handcrafted items or freshly baked goods from street vendors. It's not just about saving money, it's about experiencing the local way of life. Oh, I'm certain that our listeners living in Guatemala would agree with me the daily market experience is a joy, right?
A joy until you accidentally buy what you thought was a mango, and it turns out to be a very firm gore. Oops, I've been there. But seriously, if you're looking to stretch a foreign income, Guatemala offers a compelling argument. Even accommodation, while maybe not five-star luxury everywhere, is remarkably affordable. Now, moving on to our second country, Syria. Well, this is where the wallet's happy dance takes a very somber turn.
Ah yes, Syria. It's a completely different landscape, both literally and economically. The situation there is incredibly challenging due to years of conflict and sanctions. For locals, navigating daily expenses is a Herculean task. Hyperinflation means prices change constantly, and basic goods can be scarce. Ouch. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, my idea of a cost of living challenge is finding organic avocados on a budget. Their challenge is finding any avocados. But in all seriousness, the economic reality in Syria is brutal. For an expat or traveler, and I use traveler with extreme caution here, given the safety concerns, the cost calculation is inverted. While locals struggle with a devalued currency, someone with strong foreign currency might find nominal prices low. But the real cost is about access and safety.
It's a powerful point, Leah. It's not just about the numbers on a price tag, it's about the entire infrastructure, the availability of goods, and personal security. Oh, it transforms the very definition of cost of living. It highlights how deeply interconnected peace and economy are. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this profound difference. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. We value your insights.
Definitely. And speaking of insights, if you're researching deeply into these complex economic situations for potential humanitarian work, or even just to understand, sites like I can provide a wealth of information on various countries. It's all about equipping yourself with the right context. For Syria, any notion of a typical job market for expats is almost entirely within aid organizations, and even then, it's fraught with immense risk. No spontaneous, "Oh, I'll just open a coffee shop."
But for Guatemala, the job market, for those with specific skills, can be quite welcoming, especially in tourism, education, or even sustainable agriculture. Oh, and for daily expenses, things like local transportation are incredibly cheap, which is a huge plus. You might not have the high-speed internet as some European capitals, but you're probably not paying European prices for anything else either.
True. And let's not forget the currency. The Guatemalan quetzal is relatively stable, which helps with planning, whereas the Syrian pound has been on a roller coaster ride that would make even the most seasoned comedian dizzy. Whoa! It's a constant battle against inflation, making any long-term financial planning almost impossible for most. For anyone considering the cost of living, it's a stark reminder that sometimes the price tag is just the beginning of the story.
Absolutely. So, whether you're dreaming of a budget-friendly adventure in Guatemala or trying to grasp the challenging realities of life in Syria, the economic picture is never just about money, it's about resilience, community, and basic human needs. Wow. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you found this conversation thought-provoking. It helps us continue these vital discussions. Ooh. Diving into our fifth topic, accommodation options on quality, I've been dreaming of places with a bit of character. You know me, Leo. I love a good story behind a wall. Guatemala, for example, paints such a vibrant picture in my head. Colonial homes, lakeside cabins by Lake Atalant, even funky eco-lodges. Wow, it sounds like you could almost trip over a piece of history just walking into your rental. Oops.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. You're always one step ahead, Mira. Tripping over history, I love that. In Guatemala City, I imagine apartments with character, though maybe less of the fairy chimney vibe you'd find in well elsewhere. My research shows the housing market there can be quite a mix from rustic to really luxurious. And you know me, I'm always looking for a spot with excellent internet and, more importantly, otherwise, what's the point of waking up?
A good coffee maker is non-negotiable, but speaking of character, I'm thinking of those stunning colonial houses in Antigua, with their inner courtyards and lush gardens. Imagine sipping your morning coffee perfectly brewed, of course surrounded by bougainvillea. It just screams living your best life. Wow, I bet our listeners who've explored Guatemala are nodding along right now. If you've got a favorite spot, let us know in the YouTube comments.
I'm sure they are. Though I'd probably spill my perfectly brewed coffee all over that bougainvillea myself. Oops. But seriously, the real estate market in Guatemala can be pretty informal, which means there's room for negotiation. It's not like you're just clicking buy now on a website. You actually have to, talk to people. Whoa. Imagine that. Human interaction for housing. My notes also say that outside of Guatemala City, things get significantly more affordable. So, if you're willing to trade urban hustle for lakeside, urban hustle for lake.
That's a great point about negotiation. It adds a whole different layer to finding a place, doesn't it? Like a treasure hunt, but with a roof at the end. Oh. Now, when we try to look at Syria through the same lens of accommodation options and quality, the picture shifts quite dramatically, doesn't it? It's a stark contrast. My heart goes out to everyone affected there.
Indeed it does, Mira. A dramatic shift is an understatement. If we're talking about accommodation options in Syria, the reality is a far cry from colonial courtyards and bougainvillea. It's a profound challenge. Decades of conflict have resulted in widespread destruction, making a standard comparison of housing markets almost absurd. It's like comparing a 5-star hotel to a tent in a hurricane.
Whoa, I hadn't thought of it quite like that. But you're right, it puts things into perspective. It's not about choosing between a cozy cottage and a city apartment, but often about sheer survival and safety. Yet, even amidst such difficulty, I've seen stories of incredible resilience, where people rebuild, or make home, out of whatever is available with so much heart. It's a testament to the human spirit.
Absolutely, Mira. Resilience is a powerful thing. For those who are still there, or attempting to return, securing any form of safe, stable housing is the primary goal. Quality, in many areas, means basic shelter, working utilities, and a sturdy roof. It's not about aesthetic appeal or modern amenities. It's about stability and protection. And for any international presence, typically aid workers or journalists, their accommodation is often highly controlled, fortified, and far from what we'd consider typical.
It really is. I'm certain that our listeners, especially those who follow world events, understand the gravity of this. It changes our perspective, doesn't it? From envisioning charming rentals in Guatemala to the heartbreaking reality of displacement in Syria, the word home takes on such different meanings.
It does. When we mention rental data for Syria, we're not talking about market trends, we're talking about immense human need. Access to safe housing is a critical humanitarian issue. So while Guatemala offers a vibrant, albeit informal, housing market for expats looking for a unique living experience, Syria's housing narrative is one of recovery, reconstruction, and profound human struggle. It's important to acknowledge that without making light of it. If you're interested in learning more about the light of it.
And remember, if you're enjoying this conversation, please hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Oh, it helps us bring more of these comparisons, even the challenging ones, to your ears. So while the choices in Guatemala sound like a delightful adventure for housing, the options in Syria are a testament to the human spirit in the face of immense adversity. Wow, it's a heavy thought, but an important one. Alright, so we're diving headfirst into the fascinating and sometimes utterly bewildering world of visas, immigration, and official procedures. You know, sometimes I feel like I need a degree in bureaucracy navigation just to fill out one form. But Waldo, is your missing signature on page 7, subsection B?
Mira, you always find a way to make it sound like a carnival ride. Me, I just expect it to be a bad stand-up routine. Ouch! You get there, the line's longer than your patience, and the only thing guaranteed is that you'll forget one crucial document. Always one. Wow! And then you have to start all over. It's the universe's way of telling us we're not as organized as we think, isn't it? But today we're comparing Guatemala and Syria on this glorious topic.
Oh, don't even get me started on the one missing document dance, Leo. Oops. I once accidentally submitted a grocery list instead of a utility bill. I swear, they probably still wonder what I was planning to do with 3 avocados and a bag of gummy bears in a foreign country. But let's look at Guatemala first. My understanding is that for many, especially tourists, it's generally a more straightforward process. You know, a bit of vibe even in paperwork. Ugh.
Pura vida, chill vibe, and paperwork. That sounds like an oxymoron to me, Mira. No, I imagine the immigration officer saying, "No rush, amigo. Just fill out these 20 forms. Whenever you're ready, of course." Whenever you're ready, of course. Wow. My observations suggest that while Guatemala can be welcoming, the official processes often lack the kind of clear, digitalized structure you might find elsewhere. It's more of a go to the office. Ask 3 different people. It's an adventure in itself. Really. If you're in itself.
I think that's where the charm lies sometimes, Leo. It's less about strict rules and more about human connection. You might get a warm smile, even if they're telling you your form is upside down. I'm certain that our listeners who've navigated Guatemalan bureaucracy might have a few stories about how a friendly chat saved the day. You know, mi casa es su casa, even for visa applications.
Sure, mi casa es su casa, until mi casa asks for 10 notarized copies of your birth certificate from 1982nd out. Then it's less mi casa and more me headache. But speaking of complicated, let's pivot to Syria. This is a country with a vastly different geopolitical context, as we all know. The ease of visa and immigration procedures there is inherently much more challenging due to ongoing conflicts and international sanctions. It's not just paperwork, it's elaborate work,
Exactly, Leo. It's a deeply complex situation. When we talk about Syria, it's not simply about filling out forms, it's about navigating a very difficult, often unpredictable landscape. Ooh, for anyone considering travel or even more so, residency, the hurdles are significant. It requires immense patience and very precise, Outdated information. I truly feel for anyone trying to manage these official procedures right now.
Yes, outdated information is key, which is why a site like Jeddah is vital for comprehensive resources. You don't want to get your intel from a blurry photo of a handwritten sign, right? In Syria, depending on your nationality and the purpose of your visit, getting approval can be incredibly difficult, often requiring extensive security checks and special permissions that can take months, if they're granted at all. Aha! It's less of a bureaucratic maze and more of a bureaucratic fortress.
It sounds like in Syria, the east part of visa is almost non-existent for many, which is a stark contrast. In Guatemala, while it might be a bit informal, the intent is generally to welcome. In Syria, it's about control and security, understandably so given the circumstances. For all listeners thinking about these situations, it's crucial to consult official government sources and legal experts, not just random blog posts.
Absolutely, Mira. You can't just show up in Damascus with a backpack and a cheerful hola and expect a smooth entry. Oops, that's a recipe for a very long conversation with someone in uniform. The rules are constantly evolving, and access is tightly regulated. Foreigners, especially Westerners, face immense scrutiny. It's not a place where you can rely on charm or a friendly smile to bypass protocol. Ouch.
If you're trying to figure out the requirements for either country, checking official embassy websites is your first step. And hey, if you find this discussion helpful, you should totally hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us bring more comparative insights like these. What do you think, Leo? Could they learn to navigate this by following all the rules?
Rules are one thing, Mira, but the practical reality is another. In Guatemala, you might find that rules are more like suggestions with flexible interpretations, depending on who you talk to and what time of day it is. In Syria, the rules are rigid, numerous, and often opaque, demanding an almost military precision in your applications. In Syria, the rules are rigid, numerous, and often opaque, demanding an almost military precision. It's an exercise in extreme compliance, or extreme futility.
No gummy bears allowed in Syria then, probably. Ouch. That's a definite no-go. But you're right, Leo. Getting local expert help is crucial. This is definitely not a place for improvisation, especially in Syria. For anyone watching on YouTube, if you've had experiences with these procedures in either Guatemala or Syria, please share them in the comments below. We're actually curious about what our listeners think about this and how it impacts their plans.
Yes, your first-hand accounts are invaluable, especially if you've mastered the art of getting a document stamped by 3 different departments on a Tuesday afternoon in Guatemala, or simply managed to get an interview appointment for Syria. Wow! Those are feats of bureaucratic heroism, my friends. For more detailed resources and updated advice, remember to check out Jeddah AI. They've got the lowdown on these kinds of official hurdles.
It's clear that while both countries have their own unique official procedures, the ease factor is poles apart. One requires patience and a good sense of humor, the other, extreme caution, expert guidance, and a recognition of the severe realities. It's a stark reminder that immigration isn't just about moving to a new place, it's about entering a whole new administrative universe. Wow. So, shifting gears from travel planning to something a little more serious, let's talk about access to and quality of health services. When we think of a country like Guatemala, it's almost like a healthcare lottery, wouldn't you say? You have the public system, which is usually quite stretched, especially in those beautiful but very remote mountain villages. Then there's the private option, shining bright in the bigger cities, but with a price tag that'll make your wallet do a double take. It's like choosing between a long, scenic bus ride or a very quick
Healthcare lottery, I like that. It's almost like a game show, isn't it? Will you get the basic bandage or the fully stocked private suite? And if you're not in one of those major hubs like Guatemala City, you might as well pack a first aid kit the size of a small suitcase. Whoa! I'm certain that our listeners living in the more remote parts of Guatemala would definitely agree with me there. Now, speaking of healthcare systems that have seen better days at all, it's less of a lottery there in days at all.
Oh, Leo. You always have a way of putting things bluntly, but you're not wrong. When it comes to Syria, the situation is heartbreakably stark. It's less about choice and more about survival. But let's bring it back to the expat lens for a moment. In Guatemala, if you're a foreigner and you break a toe doing some adventurous hiking, which I'd probably do, oops, you'd likely head straight for a private hospital. They might even have English-speaking staff. Well, it's a completely different world from the underfunded public clinics that primarily serve the local population.
Breaking a toe while attempting to dance a local folk dance in a mountain village. I can see that for you, Mira. Oh, and yes, in Guatemala, for anyone with a foreign wallet, it's private all the way. You're practically paying for the peace of mind that someone will understand my left toe when trog. Now, for Syria, the expat lens for routine healthcare is almost a surreal concept in many areas. It's more about humanical supplies being a luxury. It's more about humanitarian aid missions than choosing between a fancy hospital and a public one.
It certainly does, Leo. When you think about well-being in Guatemala, an expat might worry about securing good private insurance that covers everything from a nasty mosquito bite to, say, trying to explain a mysterious rash that appeared after sampling some questionable street food. You can find more details about international insurance plans and travel tips on our site. Jet off AI, especially if you're planning any adventurous trips. The cultural nuance in Guatemala too is that traditional healers still play a significant role, particularly in indigenous significant role.
So I think that we can conquer that. Street food rashes, the true test of an adventurer's stomach. I know that feeling. And yes, that blend of traditional and modern medicine in Guatemala is fascinating. It's like having a shaman and a surgeon on speed dial, depending on the ailment. The focus isn't on optional traditional remedies, it's about whatever marginal roof left on the clinic. And in another, you're hoping there's even a roof left on the clinic. And in amidst ongoing crises, medical professionals who are still there often work under unimaginable resources.
Exactly. So, when we talk about quality in Guatemala, especially for expats, it's about seeking out the best private facilities that offer state-of-the-art equipment and trained specialists. You get what you pay for, as they say. Ooh. For the general population, access to that quality is the big hurdle. In Syria, however, the very definition of quality has been forced to adapt to extreme circumstances. It's about triage, basic care, and often just trying to relieve suffering, which highlights a profound global inequality.
Absolutely, Mira. It's a stark contrast in healthcare narratives. Guatemala presents a case of uneven access and quality, where your financial muscle largely determines your medical experience. Syria, on the other hand, illustrates a healthcare system grappling with widespread devastation and profound humanitarian challenges. It's less about finding a specific treatment and more about finding a specific treatment in Guatemala. It's less about finding a specific treatment and more about finding any treatment. So, while you're packing your trans for Guatemala, you'd probably insurance for Guatemala. You'd probably be packing your travel insurance for Guatemala.
Well, since we were just talking about embracing chaos, let's dive into something truly chaotic, but wonderfully unique. In Guatemala, their transportation infrastructure and convenience. I've always been fascinated by their famous chicken buses. They're these old, repurposed American school buses, painted in every color imaginable, often with chrome accents and religious sayings. Well, my cousin swore he saw one with a disco ball inside.
A disco ball on a bus. Sounds like your idea of essential infrastructure, Mira. Oops, I can just picture you trying to teach a salsa lesson mid-commute. But yes, those chicken buses are truly legendary in Guatemala. I've heard stories about them moving at speeds that would make a race car driver nervous, especially on those mountain roads. Oh, it's less about convenience and more about an experience, wouldn't you say? My back hurts just thinking about the potholes.
You know me, Leo. Any excuse for a dance break. But you're right. It's definitely an experience. Speaking of those roads, from what I understand, outside of the major cities like Guatemala City, a lot of the infrastructure can be quite raw. You're looking at unpaved paths, winding turns, and sometimes, well, a landslide or two if the weather's really trying to make a point. Well, I bet our listeners in Guatemala are nodding their heads right now. Thinking. Yet, that's all you will think about this. Tell us below.
Landslides. Sounds like an unexpected detour for my coffee run. Seriously though, that's a crucial point about Guatemala's transportation. The main arteries are reasonably developed, but venture off the beaten path and you're entering a different kind of adventure travel. It involves more four-wheel drive than a sleek sedan. The traffic in Guatemala City. Let's just say it's not for the faint of heart. You could probably read a small novel waiting to get across town. I actually have a small travel note here.
I can totally imagine that. But you know, even with those challenges, the locals make it work. They're incredibly resilient. From tuk-tuks in smaller towns to shared taxis, there's always a way to get from A to B, even if A and B are on opposite sides of a very steep hill. Oh, and for those looking for a different vibe, there are beautiful lake ferries, like on Lake Atlant. That's a much calmer ride than a chicken bus, I'd wager.
Agreed, Mira. The ingenuity of local transport is always fascinating. But let's shift gears smoothly, unlike some of those mountain roads, and talk about Syria. The situation there is, of course, far more complex, and its transportation infrastructure has faced immense challenges. Wow, we're talking about a landscape where simply getting from one city to another can involve damaged roads and significant uncertainty. Ouch. It's less about finding a charming chicken bus and more about what routes it can bus in me.
That's a really important distinction, Leo. While Guatemala's challenges are more about development and geography, Syria's are tragically rooted in conflict. So, the idea of convenience takes on a completely different meaning there. It's less about speed or comfort, and more about sheer accessibility and safety. Public transport, where it exists, might be irregular and overburdened. We should definitely refer to Jet for the latest travel advisories on such sensitive areas.
Absolutely, Mira. In Syria, mobility is inextricably linked to the ongoing security situation. Internal travel is highly dependent on local conditions, and what might be open one day could be restricted the next. International travel is also heavily constrained with limited flight options and often very complicated entry requirements. So, when we talk about transportation convenience, here, it's truly a testament to the resilience of people trying to navigate their daily lives amid to the resilience of people trying to navigate their daily lives of people trying to navigate their daily livity.
Indeed, Leo. And for many, personal vehicles or informal carpooling might become the primary mode, if resources allow. It highlights how crucial basic infrastructure is, not just for tourism, but for everyday survival and connecting communities. We've talked about beautiful landscapes and vibrant cultures, but the ability to simply move freely and safely is a fundamental need. If you've got a better transit hack for navigating complex region, drop a conversation. There's differences in global mobility. Alright, so since we were just discussing the vibrant dance of cultures, Let's shimmy our way into a topic that often makes me want to do a little jig myself: language barriers and ease of communication. Today we're diving into Guatemala and Syria. Now, Leo, when I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately pictures colorful textiles and ancient ruins. How do you imagine communication there?
Well, Mirror, I picture a lot of pointing and exaggerated facial expressions, especially if I'm trying to order a coffee that isn't secretly a sugar bomb. Speaking of which, my usual observation is that Guatemala's primary language is Spanish, which is fairly widespread. But then you have, over 20 indigenous Mayan languages. That's not just a language barrier, it's a linguistic labyrinth forest, and a comedian trying to find the punchline.
A linguistic labyrinth, I love that. And you're right, it is a mosaic. Imagine all those rich stories and ancient wisdom preserved in languages like K, I see he, or Cool cock you see hi Kel. Wow. For someone like me who just loves to jump in and connect, I think it adds such a layer of beauty, even if it means my attempts at hola mi amiga sometimes get a blank stare. You guys out there listening, ever tried to learn a new language on the fly in a market?
A full body workout. Sure, if your body's primary function is awkward gesturing. And while that sounds charmingly chaotic for you, Mira, for a traveler like me, it's less about the beauty and more about the where is the nearest translator app that actually works. But seriously, in tourist hubs like Antigua or Lake Atlan, you'll find more English speakers. Beyond that, a basic command of Spanish is pretty much non-negotiable. Otherwise, you're just ordering what looks good on the menu, which can be a gamble, my friends.
Oh, I was just about to ask that the famous menu gamble. Oops. But that's for the funnies, right? You end up with something unexpectedly delicious, or you have a story to tell about the time you accidentally ordered tripe. Now, when we shift our focus to Syria's linguistic landscape, it's a different story. The main language is Arabic, specifically the Levantine dialect.
Tried? Yes. Mastered? Mastered. My brain barely masters ordering a simple coffee in English before 9 a.m. Ouch. But I do observe that Arabic in Syria is incredibly rich with subtle nuances that can change a sentence's meaning entirely. For an outsider, this can be quite the linguistic tightrope walk. You have to be mindful of context, tone, and even nonverbal cues. It's not just what you say, but how you don't say it. Well, and with the current complexities in the region, communication can sometimes be more about trust than times be more about trust than times be more about...
Wow, that's such an insightful point, Leo. It's true that beyond the spoken words, cultural communication norms play a huge role. I'm certain that our listeners living in Syria would agree with me. Hospitality is paramount, and directness, which we often value in American English, might sometimes be seen differently. It's about building rapport. And for expats, learning Arabic isn't just a convenience, it's a gateway to genuinely understood and being understood by the local people.
Absolutely. You can't just barge in with Google Translate and expect deep philosophical conversations, or even directions to the nearest falafel stand. While some academic and business circles might have English speakers, especially in the past, the general population will require you to speak Arabic. It's not like Barcelona where you can get by with a lot of gracias and a charming smile.
Lifetime supply of unwanted items, now that's the story for your stand-up, Leo. But on a more serious note, both countries present unique challenges and rewards when it comes to language. For Guatemala, while Spanish is key, acknowledging and respecting the indigenous languages shows a deeper appreciation for the culture. For Syria, Arabic isn't just a language, it's a connection to history, identity, and the warmth of its people.
Indeed, Mira. And I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you've navigated the linguistic landscapes of Guatemala or Syria, what were your biggest triumphs or most hilarious blunders? Drop us a comment on YouTube Wheel of hearing your real-world tales. Because let's face it, my blunders are just material, but yours are pure gold. It seems that whether you're trying to say thank you in KIC, or asking for directions in Levantine Arabic, patience and a good sense of humor are your beck.
You know, Leo, when we talk about cultural diversity and tolerance, my mind immediately goes to all those vibrant colors, the music, the flavors. Wow, it's like the world is a giant buffet, and I just want to try a little bit of that Guatemala. It's a kaleidoscope of traditions, isn't it?
A giant buffet, Mira. You'd probably try to eat the tablecloth too if it looked interesting enough. But you're right, Guatemala's diversity is something else. You got the indigenous Maya, the mestizo population, Garifuna, it's like a cultural quilt. I once saw a street market there, and the traditional textiles were so vivid, my eyes almost got a tan. Whoa, it's amazing how many different languages they speak too. Over 20 indigenous ones.
Oh, I'd probably just point and make happy noises, and they'd understand. Oh, it's that kind of welcoming spirit that truly speaks to me. Speaking of which, the resilience of those cultures in Guatemala, maintaining their unique identities for centuries, is just incredible. It's like they're saying, we're still here, and we brought our best dances and recipes. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this vibrant mix. Do you guys agree that cultural expression is the best form of tolerance?
Well, I'd say sometimes it's also about politely tolerating a very spicy dish they insist you try, right? Oops. But you've got a point. While the colorful traditions are celebrated, we can't forget the historical complexities. Guatemala's past with indigenous rights hasn't always been a straight path, you know? It's like watching a really dramatic movie with beautiful scenery but a very tense plot. There are still challenges with economic and political integration for some of those communities.
Absolutely, Leo. Those are the conversations we need to have. It's not just about the surface level beauty, but the deeper respect and equity. And that leads us to a country like Syria, which has a very different and often heart-wrenching story when it comes to diversity and tolerance. Wow, historically, it was a hub, a real melting pot of Arabs, Kurds, Assyrians, Christians, Druze, a true crossroads. Oh, imagine all the different stories and dishes that must have originated there. Oh.
Yes, historically, Syria was where East met more East and a bit of West, and everyone brought a casserole. It's a land with layers of civilizations, which meant layers of different peoples and faiths coexisting. But the recent civil war has, to put it mildly, stirred that pot a bit too vigorously. Ouch! It's a stark reminder that tolerance, when tested by conflict, can unfortunately unravel. It's not just about what happens when those differences are weaponized.
And that's why understanding these layers is so crucial, isn't it? It's the human spirit, even amid such turmoil, that still strives to rebuild, to reconnect with those shared historical threads. I bet there are countless stories of people from different backgrounds helping each other, even when things were at their worst. Wow, there's a tolerance that comes from the heart, not just a policy book, and I'm certain that our listeners living in the region would agree with me.
I imagine there are. It's like finding a single, determined flower pushing up through cracked concrete. It's a testament to people's fundamental human desire for connection, or at least for not constantly bickering. When we talk about these countries, it really shows that diversity is not just a demographic fact, it's a living, breathing, sometimes struggling relationship. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, Mira. Sometimes it's a very cloudy day with a brief, hopeful rainbow appearing.
But those rainbows are what we live for, Leo. It's what gives us hope that even in the most challenging situations, people can find common ground. And that's what makes both Guatemala and Syria despite their differences, incredibly rich places. You can learn so much about humanity just by observing how people interact and preserve their cultures. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to Jet of AI for more discussions that explore the world's complexities.
You're always ready to find a silver lining, even in a storm cloud. I suppose that's why we need both of us on this podcast, you, the optimist, and me, the guy who points out the strange shape of the cloud. It's a delicate dance fostering cultural diversity and tolerance, requiring constant effort and a good sense of humor, especially when your neighbor's goat tries to eat your laundry. Oops. Anyway, we'll delve deeper into the nuances on our Jet of AI site for those of you who want the full, unfiltered story.
Moving right along, let's talk about educational opportunities and language schools in Guatemala and Syria. Now, when I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately jumps to vibrant colors, ancient ruins, and of course, those incredible Spanish language schools. It's like everyone goes there to learn Spanish and maybe pick up a new dance move or two. I actually have a friend who went to Antigua and came back speaking Spanish with a slight Mayan accent.
Speaking of linguistic adventures, Mira, I'm sure your friend also came back with a new appreciation for getting lost in translation. Guatemala definitely has that reputation for its Spanish immersion programs. You know, you get placed with a local family, eat their cooking, and suddenly, Don Desta Albano becomes second nature. Ouch! It's less about a formal classroom and more about being politely thrown into the deep end, which for some is the only way to really learn a language.
Oh, I'm certain many listeners have a goat instead of coffee story. That's the beauty of it, right? You make mistakes, you laugh, and then you learn. Aha! But beyond the language schools, Guatemala's educational system itself has some distinct characteristics. While private schools, particularly in urban centers like Guatemala City, offer strong curricula, the public school system faces its own set of challenges, often with resources and overcrowded classrooms, especially in rural areas.
You hit on a key point there, Mira. The rural-urban divide in Guatemala's education is quite stark. In some indigenous communities, access to even basic schooling can be a real struggle, and literacy rates reflect that. It's not just about textbooks, it's about infrastructure, qualified teachers, and sometimes just a safe path to school. Ouch! It reminds you that education isn't a given everywhere. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've taught or studied in such environments think about this, please. Let us know in the comments, think about this, please. Let us know in the taught or studied in such environments, think about this, please.
Well, since we mentioned those challenges, it's truly commendable to see the resilience of students and teachers who strive for education despite the hurdles. And when we look at higher education, Guatemala does have several universities offering a range of programs. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but the determination to learn is certainly there. Now, shifting gears quite dramatically, let's bring Syria into the conversation. Before the conflict, Syria actually had a rather robust and often free public education system with high literacy rates. Well,
Pre-conflict Syria's education system was quite impressive, I agree. Universal, publicly funded, and a focus on academic rigor. But then, as we unfortunately know, the situation completely changed. The sheer devastation of infrastructure, the displacement of millions, teachers and students scattered everywhere, it's a stark reminder of how fragile societal pillars can be. Education becomes a luxury when survival is the priority. Ouch. It's like trying to teach Pythagoras' theorem when the roof is missing and when the roof is theorem.
whoa, not to dock, Leo, just realistic. It's important to acknowledge the immense challenges. While the formal language schools for foreigners that might be non-existent now, the focus shifts to emergency education, providing basic literacy and numeracy for displaced children, often in very makeshift conditions. It's a testament to the human spirit, that people are still trying to learn and teach amidst such turmoil. Many initiatives by NGOs and international bodies are trying to rebuild, but it's a long uphill battle.
It absolutely is, Mira. while Guatemala boasts vibrant Spanish schools where you can learn a language and maybe a new identity. Syria's language schools, right now, are more about survival, about ensuring a generation isn't completely lost to illiteracy. It's a sobering contrast. Learning Arabic for foreigners, which once happened, is obviously not a major focus when people are just trying to keep their children safe and in some form of learning environment, no matter how basic.
Indeed, it's about shifting priorities. So, whether it's learning a new language in a beautiful, culturally rich environment like Guatemala or the sheer determined depth of pursuing basic education in a crisis-stricken region like Syria, the human desire to learn remains powerful. Ooh, we're not just talking about academic institutions, we're talking about the hope and resilience of people. And for those interested in supporting education in challenging regions, checking out Jetta Faye's resources or related art YouTube channel could be a great starting point.
Yeah, definitely. So in Guatemala, you might be debating whether to enroll in a school in Antigua or Quetzalano to perfect your acid versus tea usage. But in Syria, the conversation is tragically different. Is there even a school? Is it safe to send my child? Is it safe to send my child? It's a jarring juxtaposition. Both are educational landscapes, but one offers a choice of luxury learning, the other, a desperate need for any learning at all.
It truly highlights the global disparity, but also the universal value of education. So our next stop on this whirlwind tour of the world's climates takes us to Guatemala. Imagine a country where you pretty much have two words, wet or dry. It's like nature decided, let's keep things simple, folks. Just pick a filter for your daily photos, rainy or sunny. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've been there think. Do you spend half the year dodging puddles, then the other half longing for them?
Mira, always with the photo filters. Speaking of dodging, if you think Guatemala's got to simple modes, wait until you meet Syria's climate. It's like nature had a bit of an identity crisis there. You've got that classic Mediterranean vibe along the coast, hot, dry summers that feel like an oven's on. And then winters that are surprisingly mild but bring a good downpour.
An identity crisis suitcase, that's brilliant, Leo. Ooh, it's true though in Guatemala. Those wet and dry seasons aren't just labels, they dictate everything. The dry season, from roughly November to April, feels like an endless summer vacation. Bright sun, perfect for exploring ancient ruins or scaling volcanoes. Then comes the wet season, from May to October, where the afternoons turn into dramatic torrential downpours.
The OL spontaneous swimming look. Been there, done that, accidentally. Now, in Syria, those seasonal shifts aren't quite as predictable as a bucket-emptying sky. Along the coast, you get those lovely, balmy Mediterranean breezes. But venture into the eastern plains or the desert, and temperatures can surpass 40 degrees Celsius in summer. Ouch! Then winter rolls around, and you're suddenly talking about freezing temperatures and, yes, snow in some areas. It's not just a wardrobe change, it's a whole lifestyle adjustment.
I wouldn't have immediately thought of that. Oh, in Guatemala, the regional differences are also quite striking. Up in the highlands, where cities like Antigua sit, it's often called the land of eternal spring. Think mild, pleasant days all year round, perfect for wearing a light jacket. Then you head down to the Pacific coast, and it's suddenly hot and humid, a real tropical sweat fest. And if you go north to the Piton region, it's hot and humid year round, like living in a gentle sauna.
Yeah, microclimates are fascinating, Mira. In Syria, the coastal areas get the full Mediterranean treatment, which sounds great on paper, but those inland zones, they deal with scorching, dry heat in summer, which also brings a delightful phenomenon: dust storms. Whoa. Imagine trying to enjoy your morning coffee when the air decides to redecorate with sand. Ouch! Then, winter can bring surprising cold and even some snowfall in the mountains. It's not just a weather report, it's a daily adventure in climate roulette.
Climate roulette. Ooh. And speaking of adventures, Guatemala, unfortunately, also deals with its share of extreme weather, being in Hurricane Alley. Tropical storms and hurricanes can bring heavy rainfall, flooding, and landslides. It's a serious reminder that behind the beautiful scenery, nature can be incredibly powerful. We often see these dramatic images on YouTube after a big storm, reminding us to appreciate the calm days.
Indeed, Mira. On the other side of the coin, Syria has its own climate-related challenges. Droughts are a recurring issue which has significant impacts on agriculture and water resources. Whoa! It's a stark contrast to Guatemala's heavy rains, and as I mentioned, those dust storms can be pretty intense, making visibility a zero-sum game. It's less about dodging puddles and more about trying to see through a hazy orange world. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments, but from what I've gathered, it's a truly harsh reality.
So, whether it's planning your day around afternoon downpours in Guatemala or packing for extreme heat, cold, and dust in Syria, climate really shapes how people live. It's not just about the temperature, it's about the rhythm of life, the clothes you wear, even the food you eat. Wow. For those who love tropical vibes, Guatemala offers that consistent warmth, albeit with a splashy rainy season. But if you're a fan of dramatic contrasts and preparing for anything, Syria might just be your climate's personal challenge.
Right, Mirror. One's a consistent tropical hug, the other's more of a surprise. You get both a hot slap and a cold shoulder, kind of deal. Either way, you learn to adapt or you learn to complain a lot. Me? I'm just looking for a climate with a consistent coffee brewing temperature.
Oh, alright. Let's talk about something truly delicious today: food, culture, and nutritional alternatives. I swear, every time we get to this topic, my stomach starts doing a little dance. Today we're diving into Guatemala and Syria, two countries with culinary heritages so rich they could write their own novels. Wow, my mind's already conjuring up images of bustling markets and fragrant spices.
Mira, you always get so animated when food is involved. I'm pretty sure you're imagining yourself in a cooking show, spatula in hand. But you're right. These aren't just meals, they're stories on a plate. Let's look at Guatemala first. Whoa. You can't talk about Guatemalan food without talking about corn. It's not just an ingredient, it's a way of life. From tortillas to tamales, it's everywhere. Oh. I mean, I love corn. But I once had a whole meal that was just different forms of corn.
Oh, Leo, you and your vivid imagination. But you're right. Corn is queen in Guatemala. And speaking of foundations, their cuisine is a beautiful blend of Mayan and Spanish influences. Think hearty dishes like pepian or coquique, bursting with flavor, often made with vegetables, meat, and a blend of spices. Ooh, they also use a lot of black beans, rice, and plantains. It's incredibly fresh and often quite healthy due to all those natural ingredients. I bet our listeners could find some fantastic nutritional alternative.
Indeed, Mira. And the nutritional aspect is key. Guatemala's traditional diet naturally leans into unprocessed foods. You see indigenous superfoods like amaranth and chia seeds long before they became health trends in the West. Wow. They're integrated into daily meals, not just sprinkled on smoothie bowls. This focus on natural, plant-based staples also means vegetarian options are quite common, often without even trying to be. It's just how they eat. No need for fancy labels or dedicated sections, it's sections.
That's a great point, Leo. It's about a centuries-old wisdom in eating that we're only now rediscovering. Ah, well, since we mentioned it, let's shift our focus to Syria's food culture. Now prepare yourselves, listeners, because this is a region known for its incredible generosity and hospitality, especially around the dinner table. Oh, Syrian cuisine is part of the broader Levantine tradition, famous for its meze small, flavorful dishes that are perfect for sharing. Think hummus, babaji chanusach, and mahamara.
Oh, the mess. Oh, the mess. I once tried to eat an entire mess spread by myself. Oops. Let's just say my stomach regretted my ambition more than my eyes did. But truly, Syrian food is a feast for the senses. It's not just about the classics like kebags or kibach, it's the masterful use of spices, cumin, coriander, sumac that makes everything pop. And let's not forget the sweets. Syria is famous for its pistachios, dates, and pastries like baklava and knafe.
Knowing you, Leo, you'd probably buy every spice and then forget what to do with them. Aha! But seriously, the traditional Syrian diet is inherently balanced, rich in fresh produce, legumes, and grains. Historically, it's about making the most of local ingredients, creating incredibly flavorful and nourishing meals. They've perfected the art of turning simple ingredients into extraordinary dishes. For example, lentils are a staple often used in hearty soups and stews, providing excellent protein and fiber. Ooh.
That's it. Mira resilience. And that leads to nutritional alternatives in a different sense for Syria. While traditionally their diet is incredibly diverse and wholesome, current circumstances often force communities to be incredibly resourceful, adapting to available staples and aid. It's a reminder that food culture isn't static, it constantly evolves, especially in challenging times. But the heart of their cuisine, that rich heritage, it still shines through. I'm actually curious about what our listeners do.
Oh, yes. And speaking of resourceful eating, both countries offer fantastic street food experiences. In Guatemala, you have street vendors selling delicious papases, which are thick corn tortillas stuffed with cheese or beans. Or chachitos, small tamales wrapped in corn husks. These are often incredibly affordable and offer quick, nutritious bites on the go.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I look for when I'm traveling, the authentic grab-and-go bites. Wow, in Syria, you'd find incredible falafel, piping hot and fresh, with crisp exteriors and soft, herby insides, or delicious shawarma. These are not only tasty, but also provide a lot of nutritional value, especially the falafel with its chickpea base. Sometimes I think I could survive solely on street food.
Your doctor would probably send you a very stern email, Leo. Oops. But I agree, the convenience and flavor of street food are irresistible. And for those looking for healthy drinks, both cultures have their gems. Guatemala, being a major coffee producer, has incredible fresh coffee. And they also enjoy fresh fruit juices. Syria, on the other hand, is famous for its strong, aromatic tea. And during Ramadan, refreshing drinks like J.L. Lab or Kamar al-Din are popular.
Good point, Mira. My coffee deck itself would definitely feel at home in Guatemala. It's about finding comfort and flavor in different ways. It's about finding comfort and flavor in different ways. Ultimately, both Guatemala and Syria offer a window into distinct culinary worlds that are rich in history, flavor, and often inherent nutritional wisdom. Wow! If you're looking to explore new tastes, or even find some new healthy alternatives for your own diet, diving into these food cultures is a fantastic journey.
Our current topic, we compare the historical, cultural, and artistic values of two countries. From ancient landmarks to thriving art scenes and deep-rooted traditions, we uncover their rich heritage. Discover each country's unique contributions to history and culture, and how they honor their past. Well, when I think of Guatemala's history, my mind immediately jumps to the Mayans. Imagine cities like Tikal towering out of the jungle, built thousands of years ago. Ooh, it's like finding a secret, ancient civilization that knew how to party with pyramids. And the textiles, the colors, Leo, are so vibrant you could wear them to a rainbow convention and still stand out. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you've ever tried to rock a traditional Guatemalan huipil.
Pyramids built thousands of years ago, you say. My landlord thinks my apartment building is ancient, and it's only from the 72nd. Oh, I can just picture the ancient Mayan project manager, right? Let's get another 1,000,000 stones up there before the solar calendar runs out. Seriously though, it's astonishing. I once spent an hour trying to assemble a flat-pack bookshelf and almost gave up. Wow. But speaking of history, Syria's got layers of it too, doesn't it?
An archaeological onion, I love that. Wow. But you're right, Syria's history is just as mind-blowing. Damascus, for example, is considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Aha! Think about that, people have been living, loving, and probably complaining about their neighbors in the same spot for millennia. It makes my 28 years feel like a blink. And the art, like their intricate metalwork and the beauty of their calligraphy. It's just breathtaking.
Jedafei does, and so do I. It's like Jedafei is saying, we found your next historical obsession. Continuously inhabited, you say? My coffee cup struggles to stay continuously filled for an hour. Whoa. I'm pretty sure my ancestral home was just a cave with a really long for sale sign outside. Whoa. But seriously, the sheer resilience of a culture that has seen empires rise and fall, and still maintains its identity through things like traditional storytelling.
A podcast with listeners in ancient Bazaar, I can totally picture it. Ooh, it highlights how it isn't just in museums, it's alive in the streets, in the stories people share. Speaking of art, in Guatemala, the art of traditional weaving isn't just about making clothes, it's a way to tell stories, to preserve identity. Each pattern can represent a village or a family. Oh, it's like wearing your autobiography. My wardrobe mostly tells a story of I couldn't decide what to wear today.
Oops! Mine tells a story of did I spill coffee on this, or is it just the general grime of life? But that's a brilliant point, Mira. The functionality and symbolism woven into something as everyday as clothing. Aha! It's not just a fashion statement, it's a cultural statement. And Syria, with its Damascene steel and silk brocades, carries that same weight. These aren't just pretty objects, they're echoes of ancient trade routes, of skilled hands passing down knowledge through generations.
It really does. And sometimes we forget to appreciate it. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me that their heritage is everywhere, not just in guidebooks. Ooh! On the artistic front, I was captivated by the music in Guatemala. The marimba is just so lively and unique. It's the kind of sound that makes you want to spontaneously dance in the street, even if you look like a goofy tourist, which I totally would.
I'd pay good money to see that dance. Ooh. Though I suspect my spontaneous street dancing looks more like I'm swatting invisible bees. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The way music can instantly transport you or connect you to a culture. Syria, too, has such a rich tradition of classical Arabic music and storytelling through song. It's not just entertainment, it's a communal act, a way of preserving history through melody. It makes my attempts at karaoke sound rather pathetic in comparison.
Oops, Don't you dare call your karaoke pathetic, Leo. Every note is a story, right? Even if it's a story about why you should never sing that song again. But you bring up a great point. Both countries, despite their very different geographical and historical paths, use art and tradition as powerful threads to maintain their identity and community. It's truly inspiring. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to comment below and tell us which culture or art form from these places sparks your interest the most. If you like what we're sharing.
Ah, yes, like and subscribe, folks, because then you'll get more of Mira's enthusiastic dancing descriptions. Seriously, though, this deep dive into how history and culture are lived in Guatemala and Syria, rather than just eye-opening. Wow. It reminds us that culture isn't just about ancient stones, it's about the people who continue to build upon those foundations, adding their own vibrant Buster Koza.
Absolutely. And it makes me think about how much more there is to explore. Both countries offer so much for anyone interested in truly immersing themselves. Oh, whether it's the colonial architecture of Antigua in Guatemala or the ancient Sacs of Syria, there's a timeless quality that feels incredibly grounding. It's like a big, beautiful puzzle that Jet Off AI helps us put together, piece by piece, when we plan our next adventure.
Indeed. And for those who enjoy a bit of history with their morning coffee, you can find more articles related to this topic on Jet Off AI as well. Because you know, a well-traveled mind is a well-fed mind.
And a well-fed mind always makes for better jokes, right? Leo, if you thought the bustling energy of the streets was captivating, wait until we talk about Guatemala's natural beauty. Wow! It's like the earth decided to throw a gigantic, vibrant party, inviting all the greens, blues, and volcanic grays. You have these incredibly active volcanoes, dense jungles, and lakes so stunning they look painted. Oh.
Gigantic party, you say? I'm picturing myself trying to climb one of those Guatemalan volcanoes after too much coffee and realizing my party is just me gasping for air. Ouch. But speaking of dramatic landscapes, let's contrast that with Syria. It's not all lush rainforests and shimmering lakes, Mira. Syria offers a different kind of beauty, more like ancient echoes carried on the desert wind. It's vast, often stark, but with an undeniable grandeur that tells stories older than time.
But those Guatemalan volcanoes are truly magnificent. Imagine Lake Atlant surrounded by 3 majestic volcanoes. It's a view that would make even the most cynical traveler say, okay, maybe life isn't so bad after all. You can kayak on its crystal clear waters or hike through charming villages clinging to the hillsides. I'm certain our listeners living in Guatemala would agree with me, it's pure magic.
I'm sure it is, Mira. I can just picture you trying to teach a local how to do a K-pop dance on a paddle board. But Syria has its own unique charm. Think of the anti-Lebanon mountains or the coastal mountain range, offering rugged beauty and sometimes even snow-capped peaks, a stark contrast to the desert plains below. And then there's the Orange River Valley, a ribbon of green through the otherwise arid landscape. It's a testament to resilience, much like its people.
Wow, a river valley creating a green ribbon sounds like a little oasis of hope. But speaking of vibrant colors, Guatemala's rainforests in the Piton region are bursting with life. Ooh, you've got jaguars, monkeys, and so many exotic birds. It's a symphony of nature, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll spot an ancient Mayan ruin peeking out from the canopy. It's like nature and history are having their own secret conversation there.
A secret conversation that probably involves a lot of buzzing insects and me swatting at them. Oops! You'd probably find me complaining about the humidity and trying to find the nearest coffee stand in the jungle. Syria's coastline, while not boasting massive rainforests, offers the tranquil beauty of the Mediterranean. It's a more understated elegance with rocky coves and a quiet charm that beckons reflection. Not every natural beauty needs a parade. Sometimes a quiet moment by the sea is enough.
True, A quiet moment by the sea does sound lovely. But I can't imagine a quiet moment when you're soaring over Cappadocia-like landscapes in a hot air balloon. Oops, wrong country. I mean, in Guatemala, you can find stunning waterfalls and even black sand beaches on the Pacific coast. It's a country that refuses to be boring. Whoa. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Which landscape speaks more to their adventurous spirit? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Blacks and beaches, huh? It probably accidentally spilled coffee on the Mont Blend right in. When it comes to Syria, the beauty often lies in its dramatic contrasts. Vast stretches of the Syrian desert, while harsh, hold a stark raw beauty under a clear night sky. It makes you feel tiny in the grand scheme of things, in a good, humbling way. And then you have pockets of fertile land where olive groves stretch for miles, offering a glimpse of ancient agricultural traditions.
Enduring beauty and olive groves sound very peaceful. Oh, and talking about peace, I think Guatemala's incredible biodiverse sense of harmony. Imagine hiking and seeing so many different species of plants and animals all coexisting. Wow, it makes you feel like you're part of something much bigger and more beautiful. If you love nature, you must visit Guatemala, check out travel tips and more at Jet of AI.
Coexisting indeed. I usually just coexist with my coffee cup in the morning. But you're right, the natural world often provides a much-needed perspective. Syria's beauty, while less conventionally lush, offers a profound connection to history and resilience woven into its mountains, deserts, and coast. It's less about immediate and more about a deep, quiet appreciation. It's not all rainbows and waterfalls, but it has a powerful story.
Well, I'm a fan of rainbows, waterfalls, and powerful stories. Oh, it's clear both Guatemala and Syria offer unique natural wonders, just in very different packages. One's a vibrant, boisterous body of nature, and the other a more contemplative, ancient landscape. So whether you prefer ziplining through a cloud for a store, reflecting by an ancient wadi, I'm telling you, if you like this chat, hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. Oh, after all that talk about legal systems and spiritual journeys, my brain needs some physical activity, Leo. Let's leap into sports, activity and adventure options. I'm already picturing myself ziplining through a jungle in Guatemala, yelling.
You'd probably crash into a tree and still declare a performance art mirror. But you're right. Guatemala is ripe for adventure. We're talking active volcanoes that you can hike, imagine that, looking into a literal fiery pit. And the hiking trails around Lake Atlan. Wow. It's like nature designed a giant playground for humans who enjoy a good workout with a view. I'm certain our listeners who've explored those trails would agree it's quite the leg burner.
Speaking of leg burners, did you know that their national sport is football, just like in many places? Oh, but they also have a traditional sport called Yilama. A bit like an ancient ball game where players use their hips to propel a heavy rubber ball. Imagine the core strength. I'd probably end up with a bruised hip and a fantastic story. And for water lovers, there's surfing on the Pacific coast, though I'd likely just stand on the board and wave like a queen.
And fall off like a jester, I imagine. You'd make a splash either way, but you've hit on something interesting there, Mira. The contrast between ancient traditions and modern adrenaline rushes is pretty stark. While Guatemala offers those dramatic, landscape-driven adventures, volcano hikes, whitewater rafting, exploring Mayan ruins that are practically obstacle courses, Syria's sporting and activity scene is store about community, resilience. It's more about community, resilience. It's more about community, resilience.
Wow, that's a thoughtful insight, Leo. In Syria, football is also incredibly popular, a true national passion that brings people together. Ooh, you see makeshift pitches everywhere, kids playing with any ball they can find. It's a testament to the human spirit, isn't it? To find joy and connection even when circumstances are tough. And historically, before all the difficulties, they had rich opportunities for exploring ancient cities like Palmyra or participating in desert safaris.
Indeed. And let's not forget how sports can be a lifeline. In Syria, despite the current climate, local athletic clubs and individual efforts keep the flame of sports alive from track and field to basketball, providing a sense of normalcy and a constructive outlet. While it's not the adventure tourism you'd find in Guatemala, the adventure of sustaining a passion, of holding on to shared activities, is profoundly moving. It's a different kind of strength, wouldn't you say?
It reminds me that adventure isn't always about extreme sports. Sometimes it's about the courage to keep going, to find community in everyday moments. Oh, for those looking for physical challenges in Guatemala, the Fuego volcano trek or exploring the dense rainforests of Piton offer an unparalleled, vibrant experience. You get to interact with incredible wildlife and breathtaking scenery. I could vlog for weeks there.
You could vlog for weeks about a particularly interesting pebble, Mira. Let's be honest. But yes, for pure, unadulterated outdoor thrills, Guatemala's geological drama and rich biodiversity are hard to beat. From scaling a peak to diving into a cenote, it's a sensory overload in the best possible way. Meanwhile, in Syria, overload in the best possible way. Meanwhile, in Syria, the adventure might be more about exploring historical sites and cultural heritage. If conditions allow, appreciating the enduring spirit woven into their national identity,
Oh, that's a great point, Leo. So, whether you're climbing a volcano in Guatemala or witnessing the power of shared passion in Syria, both countries offer a unique take on sports, activity, and adventure. It truly boils down to the kind of experience you're seeking, from heart-pumping jungle escapades to the quiet strength of community through sport. We should definitely put more details on Getafe for our listeners.
Just be sure to pack sensible shoes for both. Ooh, and perhaps a good observation notebook for the subtle adventures.
I'm still buzzing from thinking about all those diverse landscapes. It gets me thinking, what about after the sun goes down? Our next topic for all you night owls and entertainment enthusiasts out there is nightlife and entertainment venues. And honestly, the difference between Guatemala and Syria here is, well, pretty striking. For Guatemala, I picture vibrant colors and rhythms that make you want to dance.
Dance, huh? I can see you trying to teach a local how to do the Mira shuffle in the middle of a town square. But seriously, Guatemala's nightlife, especially in places like Antigua or Guatemala City, sounds like it has that authentic Latin American zest. I'm imagining narrow, cobblestone streets in Antigua lighting up with cozy bars. And maybe a live band playing something soulful that pulls you in.
Absolutely. Antigua, in particular, feels like stepping into a painting where the party just happens to be happening. Wow. You'll find everything from chill spots where you can sip on a locally sourced coffee, or maybe Michelle Ada if you're feeling adventurous, to places with salsa lessons. And trust me, I'm ready for those lessons, even if I end up doing the cha-cha in the wrong direction. The music isn't just background noise, it's practically another character in the story. I'm certain our listeners, especially those who love to move, would agree.
Amir, a shuffle meets a Michelle Edith, it's a headline right there. But you're right, the pulse of a place after dark tells you so much about its heart. Guatemala City Zones 10 and 14, for instance, are known for their more modern clubs and upscale lounges. It's that interesting blend of colonial charm and contemporary beats. I'd love to just sip my coffee, and I mean proper coffee, not some lukewarm puddle, and observe the sheer energy of people letting loose. I bet there are some seriously theatrical dance moves to critique.
Oops. My shuffle is art, Leo, not a critique project. But speaking of art, beyond the clubs, Guatemala's entertainment also comes alive through cultural events. Think street performances, traditional dances, and even open-air markets that stay buzzing with food stalls and artisans well into the evening. Oh, it's a feast for the senses, and a great way to meet locals. We'll definitely share more details on Jet Orfei for anyone planning a visit.
Markets at night, traditional performances, that's where the real stories are, not just the thumping bass of a club. And that's where other countries diverge pretty dramatically, isn't it? When we talk about Syria, nightlife, in the Western club and bar sense, isn't quite the picture. It's more about the enduring spirit of gathering, about traditional entertainment that's woven into the very fabric of the culture. It's a testament to resilience, if you ask me.
For Syria, we're looking at a different kind of after-hours experience, one rooted in history and community. Imagine traditional Damascene coffee houses, the K-Hall, with a scent of cardamom ingots and people gather for conversation, board games like backgammon, or to listen to a Hakawat, a traditional storyteller. Wow, these aren't wild parties, but deep, soulful connections that remind you of the power of human interaction.
Akawat. Now that's what I call entertainment. None of this DJ playing elevator music on a loop nonsense. You're talking about an art form that's centuries old, where stories come alive and connect generations. It's a completely different rhythm than a disco, isn't it? It emphasizes conversation and connection over flashing lights and loud music. It's about finding joy in shared experience, which is frankly more profound.
And beyond the coffee houses, you'd find a tradition of live classical Arabic music, often known as tea Arab, in certain cultural venues or private gatherings. Oh, it's an evening of soulful melodies and intricate rhythms. It's not about being loud, it's about being deeply felt. I think it shows that entertainment doesn't have to look a certain way to be incredibly rich. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a tea Arab evening, because I'm genuinely curious.
Oh, tea Arab. I can almost smell the OUD and hear the soulful vocals. Hey, it certainly puts my stand-up routine to shame. But what's fascinating is how these deep-rooted forms of entertainment persist, providing a cultural anchor, even when modern diversions might be limited. It's a reminder that human connection and storytelling are truly universal entertainment, regardless of what's happening around them.
Exactly. So whether it's the lively salsa of Guatemala or the timeless stories and music of Syria, both countries offer unique after-dark experiences. It's a testament to how people find joy and connection, even if the venues are vastly different. Ooh.
Or perhaps, especially because the venues are so different, it shows that entertainment isn't just about what you do, but how you connect. And if you ask me, a good story with a cup of coffee trumps a bad DJ any day. And you can quote me on that, or just check out our full insights on Jet Off AI.
Our next stop is all about little ones' activities and family-friendly vibes. And for this one, we're off to Guatemala and Syria. Well, this is going to be quite the journey, isn't it? Ooh.
A journey indeed, Mira. When you say family-friendly, my mind usually pictures giant ball pits and endless ice cream. But with Guatemala and Syria, I imagine we're looking at a slightly different flavor of friendly. Wouldn't you say? I'm certain that our listeners are already thinking the same thing.
You've got that right, Leo. Guatemala, for instance, just radiates warmth like a big, cozy family hug. It's a place where family isn't just a concept. It's the bedrock of society. Oh, multi-internal households are totally normal, and kids are everywhere at market stalls, helping out, or just running around with pure joy. Wow, it's a living, breathing experience for children there.
I can picture it now, Mira. Kids weaving through bustling markets, probably haggling over a banana with more skill than some adults I know. Speaking of activities, I assume it's less about theme parks and more about the great outdoors and culture, right? I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've been there think about this.
Absolutely. Oh, Their playground is nature itself. Imagine climbing a volcano's slopes, maybe a gentle one for the smaller adventurers, or splashing around in the stunning Lake Catalant. Wow. Then there are the ancient Mayan ruins like Tikal, which are basically giant, historical jungle gyms. My inner child would be screaming with delight there. Plus, they have vibrant festivals with music and dancing that are totally inclusive for families.
Whoa! Historical jungle gyms, I like that. So less spinning teacups and more ancient stone steps. As for the festivals, I bet they're a sight to behold. I've heard the colors in Guatemala can make a rainbow look dull. But for a parent, I'd imagine safety is always a concern. Are these activities generally accessible and safe for visiting families? Or mostly for locals who know the ropes?
That's a super important point, Leah. Like any country, common sense precautions are essential. But in tourist-friendly areas, there's a real focus on ensuring everyone feels welcome and safe. Families stick together, and the community spirit is strong. I feel like if you ask a local for directions to a historical jungle gym, they'd probably lead you there with a smile and maybe even offer you a mango. Nah. Speaking of community and sticking together, that brings us to Syria, which presents a very different picture for families.
Indeed, a very different picture, Mira. When we talk about Syria, the term family-friendly takes on a profound and sometimes heartbreaking meaning. It's less about organized fun and more about basic survival and the incredible resilience of communities. Wow. Children's activities often revolve around informal play in safe zones, community support networks, and efforts to continue education amidst immense challenges. It's a testament to the human spirit, don't you think?
Absolutely, Leo. It truly is. While the focus isn't on traditional entertainment, the warmth and protection that families and communities provide for their children are still at the core. Well, despite everything, there are incredible initiatives to create safe spaces, rebuild schools, and offer psychosocial support. Children find joy in simple things, and to realize what truly matters. I'm certain our listeners will find these details moving, and perhaps even inspire them to learn more on sun.
That's a powerful thought, Mira. The focus shifts entirely to safeguarding childhood, even when the external environment is anything but safe. Ouch. While formal parks or large-scale amusement activities are practically non-existent in many areas, the drive to nurture kids and strengthen family life, as our prompt mentioned, remains. It just manifests differently through resilience, mutual aid, and holding on to hope. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd appreciate a like and a subscribe to support our channel, as we'd appreciate a like and a subscribe to support our channel.
You're right, Leo. It's about finding light in the darkest of places. Even in refugee camps, there are often efforts to set up makeshift schools or play areas, because the need for children to learn and simply be children never goes away. Wow. It's less about lavish attractions and more about the fundamental right to childhood, even under duress. The determination to provide that for their kids is truly inspiring.
It absolutely is, Mira. And it serves as a stark reminder that family-friendly isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. From Guatemala's vibrant, nature-infused cultural experiences to Syria's profound testament to human resilience and community, both countries, in their unique ways, strive to nurture their children and strengthen family bonds. I'm sure this has given our listeners a lot to think about, and we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube.
Indeed. And maybe, just maybe, it's also a reminder to hug our families a little tighter tonight. Alright, so, speaking of blending colors and vibrant experiences, let's dive into something equally colorful, but often a bit more complex in the world's tapestry, the LGBT-friendly atmosphere in different countries. Today, we're taking a look at Guatemala and Syria. And believe me, when we talk about rainbows, these two countries paint very different pictures.
Mira, always starting with the rainbows. You know, I once tried to paint a rainbow with just coffee and mud. It didn't end well. Oops. But yes, a stark contrast indeed. Let's kick off with Guatemala. It's not exactly a parade every day, but it's definitely got more shades than, say, a black and white movie, if you catch my drift.
Oh, Leo, your coffee mud rainbow sounds like my first attempt at baking. Ouch. But for Guatemala, it feels like they're slowly, but surely, adding more colors to their canvas, wouldn't you say? They've got a growing LGBT community, especially in places like Guatemala City, and Pride events are happening, which is a huge step. I'm certain that honest living there would agree with me. It's a journey. Wow.
Journey is one word for it. My observational skills tell me that while you'll find vibrant pockets and some legal protections against discrimination, say, in the workplace, marriage equality isn't quite on the table yet. So, it's like having a really good art supply store, but some of the paints are still locked up. It's progress, but with a few terms and conditions signs still hanging.
Well, you know what they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And speaking of challenges, let's gently pivot to Syria. This is where the colors, as you say, Leo, become much, much darker. It's a really difficult situation for the LGBT community there, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, Mira, difficult is an understatement. Ouch. My inner comedian struggles to find humor here, honestly. In Syria, anything other than heterosexuality is not just frowned upon, it's criminalized under various interpretations of the law. You won't find pride parades, you find a very harsh reality. It's less about painting with colors and more about trying not to disappear into the shadows.
That's why awareness is so important. We hear stories, even tiny ones, of resilience and quiet communities finding ways to support each other, often in secret, which just highlights the immense bravery. Whoa! It's a testament to the human spirit, isn't it? Even when the world feels against you.
Absolutely. My observations from afar suggest that while formal protections are non-garcitsin and the risks are incredibly high, people still find ways to connect and survive. It's like finding a single wild flower growing in a watered field. It's there, but you have to look really, really hard, and it's constantly battling the elements. For anyone curious about the details, you can always check out relevant articles on Jet Off AI for deeper insights into these kinds of global topics.
That's a powerful image, Leo. It reminds us that even in the most challenging environments, hope and identity persist. For our listeners around the world, I'm actually curious about what you think about this. How can we, as a global community, better support these individuals, especially in places where the struggle is so profound? If you have thoughts, please let us know in the comments when this goes up on YouTube.
And please be constructive. My sarcasm has limits when discussing such serious matters. So, to recap, Guatemala is on a journey, making strides but still with a way to go. Syria, on the other hand, faces immense obstacles where safety and legal recognition are tragically absent, pushing communities underground. It truly underscores the vast spectrum of experiences across our planet.
And it's a reminder that while we can playfully tease each other about coffee mud rainbows, some realities are far from a joke. But it also shows the incredible strength of people to find joy, connection, and identity no matter what. Wow, let's keep supporting that strength. Oh, so our next stop is hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners. I just love this topic, Mia, because it's where you really get to feel the heart of a place. And speaking of heart, Guatemala just wraps you in it like a warm blanket. I remember landing there, and within hours, I felt like I'd been adopted by about 3 different families. Everyone wanted to offer me coffee, a meal, a story. It was incredible.
Mira, you're probably ready to adopt me. I come with good jokes vibes. I can picture it. But seriously, Guatemala's hospitality is legendary. I once stopped for a quick street snack, and before I knew it, the vendor was telling me his entire life story, and I was holding his baby. Whoa, It felt like a speed run into his family's inner circle. I was just trying to buy a tamale, not join the family reunion.
See, that's what I mean. It's not just politeness, it's a genuine connection, you know? They don't just say mi cosa es su cosa. They practically hand you the keys to their grandmother's house. Oh, I was once hiking near Lake Catalan, totally lost, and a woman invited me into her home for some fresh tortillas. She couldn't have been more welcoming, even with my terrible Spanish. I tried to offer money, and she looked at me like I'd suggested trading my firstborn. Oops.
Yeah, trying to pay for genuine hospitality in Guatemala is like trying to pay a comedian for telling a joke. It just doesn't feel right. I remember once, I complimented a man's hat, and he almost took it off and offered it to me. I had to quickly say, no, it looks much better on you. It looks much better on you. It's sometimes you just want to compliment someone's shoes without accidentally acquiring new footwear. I'm certain that our listeners who've traveled there can relate to this.
Sorry. From Guatemala's open arms, let's pivot to Syria, a country with a different story, but with a hospitality that's equally, if not more, profound historically.
Exactly. It's a hospitality born from ancient traditions, where a guest was often seen as a blessing. Wow. I've heard stories, even recently, of people offering tea or a meal to strangers, sharing what little they have. It's truly humbling. I'd probably fumble over the customs and accidentally try to offer my coffee-stained travel mug as a gift. Oops. I'm sure they'd appreciate the gesture, but my coffee mug has seen things.
I think they just laugh and hand you a proper cup of freshly brewed tea anyway. Oh, it really speaks to the resilience and warmth of the people. While the outside world often sees conflict, the individual spirit of generosity toward foreigners and neighbors persists. It's a powerful reminder that humanity shines through even in the darkest moments.
It's fascinating how different circumstances shape expressions of hospitality, but the underlying human desire to connect remains. In Syria, I imagine attitudes towards foreigners might be tinged with both curiosity and caution, given the geopolitical landscape. But the innate cultural value of welcoming a guest, offering them sanctuary and comfort, that's not something you can easily erase. Well, it's baked into their soul.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the depth of their culture. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have experienced Syrian hospitality think about this. It's such a different context than, say, a tourist hotspot where friendliness is often tied to commerce. Here, it feels like it comes from a much deeper place.
Indeed, both countries, in their own unique ways, offer a masterclass in making foreigners feel at home. Guatemala with its vibrant immediate embrace, and Syria with its profound, historically ingrained sense of welcoming despite everything. I guess the lesson is, always be ready to be offered a second breakfast, regardless of where you are.
Which brings us to our next point, and honestly, the digital world is just fascinating. Today, we're diving into the internet infrastructure and digital facilities for Guatemala and Syria. Now, in Guatemala, you're looking at a country where connectivity is definitely growing. Major cities like Guatemala City or Antigua are quite wired, with a decent spread of fiber and mobile data. I bet you could even find a cozy cafe with Wi-Fi there. Leo, perfect for your morning brew.
A cozy cafe with Wi-Fi, you say? I'm picturing myself trying to up routine, and it's buffering so slowly the audience ages before the punchline even loads. While urban centers in Guatemala are getting there, let's be real, a lot of the rural areas are still playing catch up. It's like they're still waiting for the dial-up tone. Whoa! Mobile data is the hero for many, but sometimes that's barely a trickle, not a stream. I'm certain that our listeners in those regions would agree with me.
You're right, rural access can be a challenge, but I've seen some amazing initiatives there, bridging that gap with innovation and community efforts. It's like a digital scavenger hunt, finding clever ways to connect. Aha. Now, speaking of challenges, let's talk about Syria. The internet landscape there is, understandably, a very different story. The conflict has had such a devastating impact on infrastructure.
Devastating is an understatement. Ouch! We're talking about a situation where reliable internet isn't just a convenience, it's often a luxury, or even an impossibility for many. Infrastructure that was there has been damaged or destroyed, and what remains is often heavily controlled and monitored. Forget high-speed fiber in some areas. People would be thrilled to just get a consistent signal at all. Trying to be a digital nomad there. That's less nomad and more desperate search for a single precious bar.
It's truly heartbreaking to think about, but even amidst those immense difficulties, human ingenuity often shines through. I've heard stories of communities finding incredible ways to share limited resources, using satellite links where traditional lines are down. It's like building a tiny, resilient digital bridge against all odds. Wow! And for those who can access it, the internet becomes even more vital for staying connected, for information, even for just a moment of normalcy.
Oh, absolutely. It puts things into perspective, doesn't it? When we complain about our Wi-Fi being slow because it's only 50 baps, people in Syria are probably just trying to send a text. In Guatemala, the focus is on expanding access and fostering a nascent tech scene in Syria. It's about sheer survival of connection. It's the difference between trying to become a smart city and just trying to get a signal for basic communication. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this digital divide.
It's a stark reminder of how privileged we are to have consistent, free-flowing information at our fingertips. Oh, whether it's navigating a new city or staying in touch with loved ones, robust internet is a lifeline. For anyone planning a trip or considering a long-term stay, checking the connectivity for a specific region on a site like Jet could be incredibly helpful. It's like having a digital roadmap before you even pack your bags.
Good point, Mira. You wouldn't want to get somewhere and realize your elaborate, coffee-fueled travel plans are stuck in the analog age. Oops. The ability to connect, whether for work or just to watch get videos, I mean. Essential research is a massive factor in modern living.
Indeed, and I believe that reliable internet is becoming a fundamental right, not just a luxury. It empowers people, opens doors to education, and allows voices to be heard, even when those voices are thousands of miles apart. Wow, it's a huge part of what makes our connected world tick. Ooh, so we're talking about shopping? My favorite sport after eating. Today, we're diving into the vibrant world of shopping opportunities and the price-performance balance in Guatemala and Syria. And let me tell you, when I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately goes to those incredibly colorful markets. Wow, imagine, a rainbow just exploded on a textile.
Exploded is right. You'd probably buy the whole rainbow, wouldn't you, Mira? Guatemala's markets, especially places like Chichicastancho, are a feast for the eyes or a sensory overload depending on how many cups of coffee you've had. I remember seeing these intricate woven fabrics. And I thought, these aren't just clothes, they're stories. But then I saw the price tag and thought, aha, a very long story. The value for money, especially in handicrafts and local coffee, is pretty solid.
Exactly. It's not just shopping as a cultural immersion, right? You're not just buying a jade necklace, you're buying a piece of history. Whoa! And the bargaining. I mean, I love a good negotiation. It's like a mini performance. You flutter your eyelashes, maybe throw in a poor favor, and suddenly that hand-woven bag feels like a steal. For our listeners thinking about a trip, Don't forget to check out the details on Jet Off AI for some amazing travel ideas that include these local market experiences.
I can just picture your performance mirror, though I'm pretty sure my poor favor would just turn me a blank stare. When it comes to price performance, Guatemala is definitely skewed towards unique handcrafted items. You won't find many sprawling malls filled with international brands outside of Guatemala City, and honestly, why would you want to? That's where the real charm and the real value are. That's where the real charm and the real value are.
It certainly is. Well, while Guatemala's markets are bursting with color and cheerful energy, Syria's traditional souks, like the ones in Damascus or Aleppo, hold a different kind of magic. Historically, they were incredible for spices, silks, and beautiful copper work. Imagine walking through centuries of history, each store a little window into the past. Ooh. But, and this is where it gets a little more somber, the price-performance balance there has faced immense challenges due to ongoing situations. Ouch. It's less about luxury finds and more about finding necessities. More about finding necessities.
Yeah. Somber is a good word, and challenges is a polite understatement. Historically, Syria was a treasure trove for unique items, often with incredible craftsmanship. But now, the price is often tied to scarcity in a volatile economy. The performance? Well, you're not going for the latest smartphone. You're looking for the latest smartphone. It's a shopping experience born of necessity, not leisure. I'm certain that our listeners understand the stark difference here. If anything.
Absolutely, Leo. And that resilience is part of the price performance, the human spirit. Wow. You might find incredible hand-embroidered items or ancient recipes for sweets, but the actual cost is often a fluctuating number, dependent on so many external factors. It's a very different kind of value than a mass-produced item, wouldn't you agree, everyone listening?
Agreed. So, comparing the two on shopping opportunities and price-performance balance is like comparing a vibrant, overflowing fruit basket to a very carefully curated antique shop that's had a rough couple of decades. In Guatemala, you have that joy of the hunt, the colorful chaos, and genuinely good value for unique goods. You might even find some artisanal chocolate that makes your coffee taste like a dream. You can fill your suitcase with stories.
Exactly. And when we upload this to YouTube, I want to hear what you guys have found in markets around the world. What was your best bargain? Or your most surprising find? Ooh, don't forget to like and subscribe. By the way, it's like our little virtual tip jar for all these travel insights. But back to Syria. The shopping there, if you can even call it that in some areas, is about sustaining life, keeping traditions alive, and a stark reminder of economic realities.
Indeed. The price performance in Syria is less about consumer choice and more about basic survival and the preservation of culture despite everything. You're buying things that tell a much deeper story than a tourist souvenir. In Guatemala, you're celebrating craft and culture. In Syria, you're witnessing it endure. So, while you can still find beautiful items in Syria, the context is entirely different, making a direct balance comparison tricky.
It truly is. So, whether you're seeking colorful crafts and coffee beans in Guatemala, or simply observing the enduring spirit of commerce in Syria, both countries offer a unique perspective on what shopping really means. And speaking of unique perspectives, remember to check out Joshafe for more unique travel insights. Now this is a topic that truly gets my artistic soul buzzing. Cultural events, festivals, and concert opportunities, it's like peeking into a nation's heart, isn't it? For Guatemala, imagine stepping into a kaleidoscope. Your traditions are just soaked in vibrant color, especially during Semana Santa or Holy Week in Antigua. The streets literally become intricate carpets, a leftover embrace made of sawdust, flowers, and fruit. It's an entire community coming together to create temporary masterpieces just for the processions.
Mira, you make it sound like a giant, edible art installation. I can already picture you trying to sneak a snack from a flower petal carpet. All that color installation. All that color and spectacle. It's almost too much for my minimalist stand-up stage, but I can appreciate a stand-up stage, but I can appreciate the effort. Minimalist stand-up stage, but I can appreciate the effort. Contrast that with Syria. When we talk about cultural events there with Syria, we're really talking about a story of barrier. Think classical era, or really talking less historical loss. Historically, Damascus and the Lapo were Bastille.
Ah, that's such a poignant thought, Leo. But such a poignant thought, Leo. Oh, I heard about the giant kite festivals for the Day of the Dead in places like Zampango, Guatemala. Families fly these enormous, colorful kites, believing they connect with their ancestors. It's a beautiful, joyful, yet deeply respectful tradition. It reminds me that even in moments of remembrance, there's a vibrant celebration of life. For Syria, I imagine the traditional music, the Oyidian QAnon, still holds incredible power.
A giant kite connecting with ancestors? That sounds like something I'd try, just to see if my great aunt would send me a sarcastic message from the beyond. But you're right, Mira. The resilience is astounding. In Syria, traditional practices like dabke dancing or the celebration of Eid might not be public spectacles on the same scale anymore. But within families and close foes and it can famine door.
Oh, shared memory. I love that. And Guatemala still has plenty of ground stages too, with marimba music, their national instrument, often serenading town squares during various patron saint festivals. It's infectious. You just want to tap your feet or maybe even attempt a little spontaneous dance break. Bel Deal o Conquista is a powerful theatrical dance that tells a story through movement and elaborate costumes. It shows how history can be kept alive through performance.
You and your spontaneous dance breaks. Oops. I'm sure you'd be quite the sight in a Bale de la Conquista, Mira. Perhaps improvising a modern-day flamenco interpretation. But it's true, the contrasts are stark. While Guatemala's festivals are thriving spectacles that bring people together in open spaces, Syria's cultural events bring people together in open spaces. Syria's cultural events historical weight, but their festivals are still very men's historical way, breathing part of daily life. It's about to select the ancient city of Palmyra.
What a powerful way to put it. There's celebratory presence versus defiant preservation. Well, that's really something to ponder. And for all our listeners out there, if you're curious about the intricate details of these countries, histories and their ongoing cultural narratives, you really need to check out Jet of A. They have resources that dive deep into these kinds of global topics.
Indeed. For more, check out Jet Off AI, and if you like what we're talking about, please give this video a thumbs up on YouTube and share it. Ooh, your support helps us keep exploring these fascinating global comparisons.
Absolutely. So, whether it's dancing with giant kites in Guatemala or finding solace in ancient melodies that resonate through Syrian communities, culture is truly the heartbeat of a nation. It's all about, well, you get it, connecting people. Our current topic, we compare the opportunities and days of learning the local language into countries, Guatemala and Syria. From language schools to cultural immersion and linguistic challenges, we bring the experience to life. Discover each country's unique approach to language education and how it supports newcomers in mastering the local tongue. I mean, Leo, just thinking about diving into a new language makes my brain do a little happy dance. Ooh, especially when it comes to places like Guatemala, which just but when you hear Guatemalan Spanish.
My first thought, Mira, is usually how many ways can I mess up gracias today? But seriously, Guatemala is an interesting one for language. For anyone looking to learn Spanish, it's often hailed as one of the best places for immersion, especially in places like Antigua. That's rapid eye for the NSA in parts of South America. That's rapid eye for the NSA in parts of South America. It's like the language decided to take a nice, slow stroll instead of sprinting a marathon.
Right. And you know me, I love a good slow stroll, especially if it leads to a dance party. I actually heard that Antigua has tons of language schools, almost on every corner, offering incredibly affordable classes and homestay options. Imagine you're living with a local family, eating their incredible food, and practicing your Spanish all day. Wow, it's like a language boot camp, but with more tamales. Oh, I'm certain our listeners looking for an immersive experience would find it incredibly appealing. Incredibly appealing.
Moscafe, poor favor. I'm already fluent in that regardless of the country. But here's where my observational skills kick in. While Spanish is dominant, Guatemala also has over 20 indigenous Mayan languages. Whoa! Trying to navigate a market where Spanish is spoken, but then hearing a rapid eye for KICE conversation makes you realize the linguistic mosaic is far more complex than just learning Spanish. It's like trying to learn chess, and then realizing half the pieces are playing checkers.
Oh, that's so true. And that's where the adventure really begins, right? I mean, who doesn't love a good linguistic puzzle? My goal wouldn't just be to speak Spanish, but to try and pick up a few phrases in a Mayan language. I once tried to say hello in what I thought was Kok Yusi Haikel, and I'm pretty sure I accidentally asked for a pet llama. The person I was talking to just burst out laughing, and honestly, so did I. It's about connecting. Even if you sound ridiculous. What about Syria?
Yeah, Mira. Syria is a very different linguistic landscape, and not just because it's Arabic. Historically, Damascus was a major center for Arabic language and culture, attracting students from all over. Modern Standard Arabic is the official language, but the common tongue is Syrian Arabic, a Levantine dialect that's quite distinct. For a non-native Arabic speaker, it's already a significant challenge, a completely different script, complex grammar. It's like being handed a paintbrush and being told to paintbrush and being handed a paintbrush and being handed a paintbrush and...
Wow, upside down canvas, that's a brilliant way to put it. Oh, and that's just the language itself. The bigger picture, as much as I hate to bring it up, is the current situation. While there's immense beauty in Syrian culture and the Arabic language, opportunities for language immersion, especially for outsiders, are, well, significantly limited right now. Ouch! It's a bittersweet thought, isn't it? To know such a rich linguistic heritage exists, but is currently so difficult to access.
Exactly, Mira. It is. From an objective standpoint, the ease and opportunities for someone to just show up and learn in Syria are practically non-existent due to the ongoing conflict. Formal language schools for foreigners, the casual immersion in daily life, those pathways are largely closed. It's not about the difficulty of the language itself, but the practical impossibility for safe, effective learning on the ground for most people. It's the kind of place where...
A concerned coffee delivery from Leo. That's how you know things are serious. But I hold on to the hope that one day, those doors will reopen, and people can again explore and learn in Syria. Imagine the stories, the history, the poetry in that language. What a treasure. The history, the poetry in that language immersion. Guatemala definitely presents a more accessible and vibrant option, with its bustling schools and welcoming communities. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you've studied Spanish in Guatemala.
Yeah, definitely hit that like button and subscribe if you want more of our unfiltered, sometimes sarcastic, but always genuine insights. but always genuine insights. And if you're ever looking for travel plans, whether it's for language learning or just to avoid me, check out Jet Off AI for some ideas. But on the language front, the contrast is stark. Guatemala offers structured, safe, and relatively easy entry into Spanish, with the bonus challenge of indigenous languages for the truly adventurous. Syria, on the other hand, offers a profoundly
It's a shame indeed, but it reminds us that language isn't just about words, it's about context, culture, and accessibility. So, whether you're dreaming of dancing your way through Spanish phrases in Guatemala or hoping for a future where you can explore the beauty of Syrian Arabic, the world of languages is always waiting. Oh, and sometimes the biggest learning happens when things go oops.
Or when you accidentally ask for a pet llama instead of saying hello.
You know, Leo, sometimes planning a trip feels like preparing for a theatrical performance, doesn't it? You pick out the perfect outfits, practice in 3 different languages, and then you hit the road, hoping the world's your stage and not a giant obstacle course. Especially when you're thinking about places like Guatemala. You hear all sorts of stories, but I always believe in finding the silver lining, even if it's hiding behind a bus schedule.
Mira, you're always ready for an encore, even if the stage is a dusty chicken bus. Whoa, speaking of obstacle courses, our current topic is safety and comfort for women travelers and others. When we talk about Guatemala, it's a place with stunning landscapes and vibrant culture, but for women travelers, it's not always a walk in the park. It's like a beautiful painting with a few wet paint signs you have to watch out for.
Oh, wet paint signs, I like that. I actually saw a painting once where the artist accidentally spilled coffee on it and called it controlled chaos. That's kind of how I feel about travel sometimes. In Guatemala, for example, the culture can be quite traditional, and unfortunately, women sometimes report experiencing unwanted attention or catcalling, especially when traveling solo. It's not a uniquely Guatemalan thing, of course, but it's something to be aware of.
Exactly. And that unwanted attention isn't exactly a souvenir you want to bring home. Oops. My observational skills tell me that in many parts of Latin America, the machismo culture is still a thing, and sometimes it translates into persistent staring or comments. It's less about direct danger and more about a constant low-level annoyance. For public transport, especially in cities like Guatemala City, it's generally advised to use reputable ride services or travel during the day.
I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, especially if you've traveled through Central America. What are your best tips for navigating those controlled chaos moments? You know, the moments when you want to explore freely but also feel safe. Sometimes it's about blending in, dressing modestly, and just having a confidence stride, like you own the place, even if you're internally screaming. Wow.
Confident stride, she says. I usually have a sarcastic stride that keeps people guessing, but your point about blending in is crucial. In places like Guatemala, bright, flashy clothing can draw extra attention. It's not about stifling personal expression, but about making smart choices. You also need to be careful with valuables. Pickpocketing can be an issue in crowded markets or tourist spots. It's the kind of thing where you leave your fancy camera at the hotel and bring a disposable one. Just for the nostalgia, bring a disposable one.
Oh, that's such a good point, Leo. I always pack my most disposable outfits when I'm expecting some serious adventure. Whoa. It makes me think about how different this is when we consider another country like Syria. The concept of safety and comfort. For women travelers, that takes on a whole new, much graver meaning. It's not about unwanted compliments or pickpockets. It's about fundamental survival, unfortunately.
Indeed, Mira. It's like comparing a slight drizzle to a full-blown hurricane. Ouch. In Syria, for really any traveler, safety is a constant, extreme concern. The country has been ravaged by conflict, and large parts are simply too dangerous for foreign visitors. It's not a question of should I take a taxi at night, but should I? It's not a question of should I take a taxi at night, but should I take a taxi at night, but should I be there at all? Whoa! Travel advisories are typically at the highest warning levels. Any woman considering travel.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? When you hear about the challenges women face in conflict zones, it's heartbreaking. Beyond the physical dangers, there are incredibly strict cultural and religious norms in many parts of Syria, especially for women. Dress codes would be extremely conservative, requiring head coverings and full-body attire. It's a stark contrast to worrying about a catcall. It's about adhering to deeply ingrained customs, often under duress.
Precisely. And let's be honest, the legal framework for protecting women's rights in such volatile areas is often non-garcitin or overshadowed by the conflict. It's a world away from discussing whether to use a translation app. We're talking about basic human rights and physical security. For more detailed, very sober information on current conditions, I'd urge anyone to check reputable sources and even jet off AI for travel advisories that are updated regularly.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. For our listeners thinking about these kinds of places, it really underscores the importance of research and understanding the gravity of your destination. If you've been listening on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe for more country comparisons. We try to give you the full picture, even when it's not all rainbows and glitter. But comparing Guatemala and Syria on this topic truly shows the vast spectrum of experiences for women travelers around the world.
It absolutely does. One is about managing expectations and being smart, the other is about understanding extreme risk. No amount of confidence stride is going to change that. I'm certain that our listeners understand the enormous difference here.
Let's dive into legal system, individual rights and freedoms, a topic that always gets me thinking. You know, Leo, when I think of Guatemala, I picture this vibrant country, full of ancient history and breathtaking landscapes. And their legal system, it's built on a constitution, right? Sounds like a solid foundation, protecting those essential individual rights, on paper at least. All the ingredients are listed. The potential is definitely there.
Mira, you're always seeing the sunny side, aren't you? It's like you read the ingredient list and assume the cake will bake itself perfectly. Guatemala's legal system, yes, a constitutional republic with plenty of rights written down. Freedom of speech, assembly, all the good stuff. But from what my sharp-eyed traveler observations tell me, the gap between what's lived can be wider than a coffee addiction's before their first cup. Oops. I'm talking about issues like corruption or impunity.
Oh, Leo, you always had to add that dash of reality to my rainbow-colored thoughts. You're right. Implementation is key. Still, I always admire the resilience of people who advocate for change, even when things are tough. Wow. It shows the spirit of the people, pushing for what's right. It's like they're saying, this cake needs a bit more sugar, and maybe some sprinkles. Ugh. Speaking of challenging legal landscapes, let's shift our gaze to Syria.
Sprinkles in different turns are quite the understatement, Mira. Wow. If Guatemala is a coffee machine brewing plain water, Syria's system is like a machine that just stopped working altogether, and then got thrown out the window. Ouch! We're talking about an authoritarian regime where individual rights and freedoms are, well, let's just say they're severely constrained. Think arbitrary arrests, lack of due process, and a state-controlled narrative where expressing dissent is more of a high-wire act without a net. It's an entirely different legal universe.
Whoa, that sounds incredibly challenging for everyday people. It reminds us how precious those fundamental rights are, even when their implementation isn't perfect. I can't imagine living in a place where speaking your mind could lead to such dire consequences. My heart goes out to anyone navigating that. It's why awareness is so important. For our listeners who are curious to learn more about such profound societal differences, checking out resources on Jet I could provide deeper insights.
Indeed, Mira. It's not the kind of place where my dark humor would fly, unless it was so dark nobody could see it. The contrast is stark, one country grappling with the gap between its legal ideals and reality, and the other where those ideals are often actively suppressed. It really makes you appreciate the system's flaws and all. That strive for individual liberty. And you read them. We do read them. We do read them. We do read them. From a bumpy road to a sheer cliff.
Absolutely, Leo. It really highlights why we talk about these things on Jet and here on our podcast. Oh, it's about understanding the nuances and challenges people face globally. Whether it's the constitutional promises in Guatemala or the severe restrictions in Syria, the concept of individual rights is always at the core. And hey, if you're enjoying this comparative journey, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly helps us keep these conversations going. Oh, right. So we're diving into the wonderfully relaxing world of spa, healthy living and relaxation opportunities, but this time with Guatemala and Syria. I'm already picturing myself trying out some ancient Mayan steam bath and accidentally turning it into a comedy routine. Oops, like, what if I get tangled in a towel, or try to do a yoga pose and end up looking like a pretzel?
Mira, you'd probably try to make friends with the volcanic steam itself, wouldn't you? Hello, Mr. Steam. How's your day going? But seriously, when we talk about healthy living and relaxation, these two countries offer truly unique perspectives. Guatemala, with its lush landscapes and deep-rooted indigenous traditions, brings a whole different vibe to well-being.
Absolutely. Imagine practicing yoga by the stunning Lake Atitlan surrounded by volcanoes. Wow, it's like nature itself is your therapist, right? I heard they have these traditional TMA's sweat lodges, which sound incredibly cleansing. I'm certain that our listeners living near Lake Atitlan would agree with me. That feeling must be incredible. Oh, I'd probably emerge feeling like a new person, or at least a very clean, very steamed version of my old self.
I can see that. You'd probably emerge, look at yourself in the mirror, ask, whoa, did I just find the secret to eternal youth? Or just lose 5 pounds of water weight? Hey, Guatemala's connection to nature and indigenous healing is fascinating. They've been doing healthy living long before it became a trendy hashtag. It's not about expensive resorts, but about holistic practices integrated into daily life. Speaking of holistic, a good cup of coffee also does wonders for my mental well-being.
Now you're speaking my language.
Coffee, but I'd probably spill it all over my pristine white yoga outfit if I tried to meditate with it. Oops, but what about Syria? Now, that's a country with an incredibly rich history and a completely different approach to relaxation. It's less about the luxurious, tourist-centric spas and more about time-honored traditions and community. Indeed, when we look at Syria, the concept of relaxation might not immediately bring to mind tranquil retreats in the way we've been conditioned, but that's where its beauty lies. It's about resilience, about finding moments of peace in daily life. Their ancient bathhouses, the hammams, were social hubs, not just places to get clean. They were about community connection and a moment's respite. Wow. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, how traditional social spaces contribute to mental health.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. Those hammams sound like the ultimate self-care ritual, scrubbing away the worries, letting the steam do its magic. It's a testament to how different cultures prioritize well-being. In Guatemala, it's the embrace of nature. In Syria, it's the embrace of centuries-old tradition and human connection. It reminds me of how important our Jet Communities for sharing these insights.
Precisely. And let's be honest, for many, healthy living in Syria today probably focuses more on simply having access to fresh, wholesome food and supportive family connections than on a commercial spa menu. It's a deeper, more fundamental kind of well-being. You know, sometimes you just need to laugh at the absurdity of it all. I once tried to find a relaxation spa in a crowded market and ended up being offered a discount on a carpet. Whoa. I guess that's one way to achieve inner peace in a bustling souk, right?
Leo, you always find a way to make anything a stand-up routine. But that's actually a wonderful point, Healthy. Living isn't always about silencing cucumber slices. Sometimes it's the vibrant chaos of a market, the warmth of a shared meal, or a good-natured haggle over a carpet. I bet Jetofe I has some incredible stories from travelers who found relaxation in the most unexpected places in both these countries.
Absolutely. The pursuit of healthy living in Guatemala might involve a tranquil cacao ceremony, a traditional medicinal plant consultation, or a high cup of volcano. Oh, in Syria, it could be the comforting routine of a weekly family gathering, the aroma of freshly baked bread, or the simple act of sharing strong coffee with friends in a historic cafe. It's about adapting, isn't it? Finding joy and calm where you can.
That's the beauty of it, that deep cultural form of well-being. It's not a generic spa day, it's an immersive experience. And for our fabulous listeners out there, if you've experienced relaxation in either Guatemala or Syria, or even if you think our take on it is completely wrong, please let us know in the comments section on YouTube. We love hearing your perspectives.
Yes, because your insights help us keep this show grounded. Even when Mira here is dreaming of performing acrobatic yoga poses on a volcanic caldera. So, whether it's embracing indigenous wisdom in Guatemala or finding solace in ancient traditions in Syria, both countries remind us that healthy living and relaxation are as diverse as humanity itself. And speaking of diversity, we can't forget the amazing resources on Jet AI that help you discover these unique aspects yourself.
Alright, so our next stop on this whirlwind tour of the world's wonders, or in Leo's case, wonders to gently mock, is diving into opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. And first up, we have Guatemala. Oh, just the name itself makes me think of ancient temples and vibrant ceremonies, you know. Like, if you're looking for a deep spiritual experience that involves more than just silently contemplating your grocery list, Guatemala is practically shouting your name from the rooftops. You've got the indigenous Mayan spirituality, which is just breathtaking, which is just breathtuality.
Spiritual fusion cuisine? I like that. Does it come with extra salsa? But speaking of tapestry, Mira, I like that. I like that. But speaking of tapestry, Mira, I once saw a guy in Guatemala trying to explain the finer points of a Mayan calendar to a tour group while also selling them a rosary. Talk about multi-faith marketing. It was a masterpiece of observation. So, yes, you're absolutely with Nix. Being church rituals being that's being deemed perfilos mechanics being rituals in being right.
Chaotic in the best way. I actually find it incredibly beautiful how people can hold so many beliefs at once. It's like their spiritual cup is overflowing with ancient wisdom and modern faith. Wow! Imagine attending a vibrant celebration where colorful parades fill the streets, and then witnessing a sacred Mayan fire ceremony. Oh. It's not just about going to a building, it's a living, breathing part of daily life. And the community aspect is huge, everyone's involved. It makes you feel like you're part of something that really connects you.
Yes, community is the keyword. And fire ceremonies always make me think of marshmallows. which probably isn't the spiritual connection you're going for. The level of public and personal expression of faith in Guatemala is quite striking. You rarely see people hiding their beliefs. It's out there, pride striking. You rarely see people hiding their beliefs. It's out there, proud and loud, from the smallest village to the bustling city. It's like an anthropological comedy show, but if you're a curious traveler, you can engage with it. Respectfully, of course.
Well, I'd definitely be dancing right in the middle of that market, Leo. Oh, but moving from the bustling streets of Guatemala, let's turn our gaze to Syria, a country with an equally profound, yet tragically more complex, spiritual narrative. It's a place steeped in history from multiple faiths, but the recent past has undeniably cast a long shadow over those traditions. Whoa. When we talk about religious and spiritual needs there, it's not just about what's physically available, but also the resilience of faith amidst immense challenges.
So I think that we can tackle that. Indeed, Syria's spiritual landscape is incredibly rich, a place where many religions have coexisted for centuries, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. You have the majority Sunni Muslims, but also Alawites, Druze, Christians of various denominations, and even smaller communities. The historical sites are mind-boggling: ancient churches, mosques, synagogues. Wow, it's like living a tightrope walk. You can't just be conducium of faith, but...
That's why I think the strength of the community, even underground, becomes even more vital. People find ways to connect, to pray, to support each other spiritually, even when grand celebrations aren't possible. It's a testament to the human spirit's need for hope and connection. It's like, even if the physical structure is damaged, the spirit of the faith endures within the people. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you've experienced finding spiritual connection in challenging times, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
You're right, Mira. The resilience is definitely the story there. For all my sarcasm, I truly admire that. Despite the chaos, people find their sanctuaries, whether it's a hidden corner of a damaged mosque, a small family gathering for prayer, or even just in personal reflection. The idea of community support shifts from organized events to quiet. Let's say it. Personal acts of solace. And for an outsider, finding those opportunities for spiritual engagement, let's say a traveler who wants to visit a significant site.
Oh, absolutely, Leo. Knowing the current situation is paramount. And Jet Fe is definitely a resource for that kind of detailed, up-to-date guidance, especially when safety is a concern. So, if you're pondering a spiritual journey, whether it's dancing with the ancient spirits in Guatemala or seeking profound resilience in the historical depths of Syria, remember that the opportunities are there, but they manifest in very different ways. And sometimes, the most spiritual journey is simply listening to the stories of others, even if they're quite different from your own. Well, Leo, when we talk about social equality and diversity, I immediately think of countries bursting with vibrant cultures, like Guatemala. Imagine a place where 22 distinct Mayan languages are officially recognized. That's like a daily linguistic festival. Oh, it's incredible how many diverse indigenous communities thrive there, preserving traditions that are centuries old.
Mira, 22 languages. That sounds like a fascinating challenge for a stand-up comedian trying to order coffee. Oops, I'd probably end up with a chicken and a sombrero instead of a latte. But you're right, Guatemala's indigenous heritage is undeniably rich. However, all that diversity often comes with a complex history of inequality, especially for those very communities. It's not all colorful parades and ancient traditions, is it?
Well, you're not wrong, Leo. The legacy of historical conflict and discrimination definitely casts a shadow. But you also see incredible resilience and grassroots efforts to promote indigenous rights and cultural preservation. It's like watching a tiny flower push through concrete. You just have to admire the spirit. Many organizations are tirelessly working to ensure their voices are heard and their rights are protected. It's a testament to human determination. Ugh.
That's a very mere way of putting it. There's a flower in the concrete. But speaking of complex histories and challenges, that brings us to Syria, which, tragically, represents a very different side of diversity and equality. Before the devastating conflict, it was a mosaic of ethnic and religious groups: Arabs, Kurds, Armenians, Assyrian Sunnis, Alites, Christians, Druze. Wow! It was a real melting pot, but sadly, that pot boiled over.
It did, and it's heart-wrenching to think about. Whoa. But even amidst such immense challenges, you find incredible stories of communities or refugees building new lives and creating mini Syria-esque wherever they land. It speaks volumes about the human spirit, don't you think? I'm certain that our listeners, especially those who knew Syria before the conflict, would agree with me that its cultural richness was truly something special.
So I think that we can counter that. It certainly was. The war, though, has profoundly reshaped everything, exacerbating sectarian divisions and leading to unimaginable displacement. It's a stark reminder that diversity without genuine social equality and respect can become a fragile thing. When basic human rights are stripped away, other forms of equality quickly follow suit. It's a pretty heavy thought. Ouch. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube. We always value your perspective.
Absolutely, Leo. And it's not just the big picture, it's the everyday acts of kindness and solidarity that keep hope alive. You see people from different backgrounds helping each other, sharing what little they have. It's a quiet form of activism, a refusal to let division win. It's like finding a hidden cafe that serves the best baklava right after you thought the world had run out of sweets.
I bet that baklava would taste amazing, even if it came with a side of existential dread. But you're right, Mira. The resilience is remarkable. And for all its struggles, Guatemala also has these moments, particularly around indigenous rights. They're making strides, often slowly, in recognizing ancestral land rights and promoting bilingual education. It's not a quick fix, but it's progress. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who spent time in Guatemala think about these ongoing efforts.
Me too. And to our amazing listeners, remember that exploring these complex topics is what we love to do. This entire conversation, and so many others, are brought to you with the kind support of Jet Off AI. They help us jet off, metaphorically, to these fascinating places to compare their stories. Oh!
Indeed. So whether we're looking at Guatemala's journey to empower its indigenous populations or the monumental task of rebuilding social harmony in Syria, the path is long and winding. It's like trying to navigate a new city without GPS, but with a good sense of humor, we eventually find our way. Both countries show us that diversity is a gift, but equality is a daily effort.
When we talk about taxation, retirement and social rights for long-term immigrants, it's like opening a box of surprises, right? Especially comparing countries as distinct as Guatemala and Syria. In Guatemala, for instance, the tax system can feel a bit like a scavenger hunt for a newbie, I imagine. It's largely territorial, so you're mostly taxed on what you earn there. I bet finding those forms makes you wish you paid more attention in math class.
Mira, you're absolutely right. It's less a scavenger hunt and more like trying to decipher ancient hieroglyphs while someone's yelling tax jargon in your ear. Ouch! For long-term immigrants in Guatemala, you're looking at a progressive income tax system and a standard VAT. So if you're pulling in a quetzal to Quetzal, the government wants its share. It's like they're saying, welcome to our beautiful country. Now pay up. They're saying, welcome to our beautiful country. Now pay up. Now paying up. Their social security system is contribution-based.
Well, Acorn Maze After Dark, that's quite the visual. I'm certain that our listeners thinking about Guatemala are already picturing themselves with a flashlight and a bewildered expression. And beyond the tax and pension stuff, there are the social rights. Access to public health care and education for immigrants in Guatemala is often tied directly to those social security contributions. If you're a long-term resident with all your paperwork in order, you're generally more covered. It's like a membership card if you don't have it. Oops.
You're touching on a really important point there, Mira. It's about integration versus isolation for many immigrants. And while Guatemala has its complexities, which you can always research more on Jet Off AI, it stands in stark contrast to our other country today. Aha! Which talk about Syria, shall we? Wow. When you consider taxation in Syria for long-term immigrants, it's less about a structured taxation in Syria for long-term immigrants. When you consider taxation in Syria for long-term immigrants, it's less about a structured system and more about a survival strategy. Before the conflict, yes, there was a progressive income tax.
Oh. Ace and Storm poker game. I can just imagine the chaos. It sounds incredibly challenging. For long-term immigrants who are often displaced persons or refugees in Syria, the idea of a stable social security or retirement plan feels almost like a cruel joke. The general establishment for social insurance, which once existed, is severely compromised. Imagine contributing your whole life, then the system itself is decimated. Ouch. It's less about retirement and more about making it through the day.
Heartbreaking is an understatement, Mira. It's a profound human tragedy. Where Guatemala offers a structured, albeit sometimes bureaucratic, system, Syria presents a landscape where basic social rights, like access to healthcare and education, are monumental struggles. For immigrants there, it's not about enrolling in a pension plan, it's about finding clean water and a safe place to sleep. The support primarily comes from humanitarian organizations, not from a functioning state social system.
Absolutely. The contrast couldn't be starker. In Guatemala, long-term immigrants, once established, can navigate a system, find work, and contribute to their future, even with its quirks. In Syria, we're talking about basic survival, often with minimal or no formal rights due to the crisis. It highlights the privilege of even discussing structured taxation and retirement. Oh, it's a reminder that not all long-term immigrant experiences are created equal. It's like comparing a slight drizzle to a full-blown hurricane.
Well said, Mira. And for anyone considering long-term immigration, understanding these stark differences, even across seemingly disparate nations, is crucial. It's not just about the weather or the food, though those are important, as we've discussed on our Jet Off AI platform. Wow. It's about the very fabric of daily life and the security, or lack thereof, that a country provides its residents, native or immigrant.
Precisely. So, whether you're dealing with Guatemalan tax forms that feel like a riddle or confronting the devastating realities in Syria, it's all part of the global immigrant story. If you're finding this helpful, please do like this video on YouTube. It really helps us bring more of these comparisons to you. We really appreciate it, you guys. PODCASDTITL Global Giggles where the world gets witty. APISODETL E30ITIE31st. My mysteries and Syrian stories, Mira and Leo's farewell. Hey there, world travelers and fellow laugh enthusiasts. Mira here, and can you believe we've reached our final stop on this epic comparison journey? Oh, it's like finding the last piece of chocolate in the box. A bittersweet moment. And speaking of sweet Leo, you're still trying to sweet talk that coffee machine into giving you a free refill, aren't you?
Mira, a true artist knows how to appreciate their craft, which in my case is excellent coffee and observing the absurdities of life. But yes, this is our grand finale for now, and what a ride it's been. We've poked fun at traditions, admired unique quirks, and perhaps even settled a few imaginary debates about where you should move next. Today's final deep dive is into the rate of meeting specific interests in Guatemala and Syria.
Wow, what a fascinating topic, especially for Arctic countries today. Ooh, when I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately jumps to vibrant textiles, ancient Mayan ruins, and seriously good coffee. For someone interested in archaeology or sustainable farming, Guatemala is practically a pilgrimage site. What do you think, Leo? Have you ever tried to join a traditional weaving workshop, perhaps hoping to turn it into a stand-up prop?
Eh. Mira, I can barely tie my shoelaces without creating a Gordian knot, so a loom might be pushing it out. But you hit on something important. Guatemala genuinely caters to niche interests. Think about the Spanish language schools in Antigua, drawing thousands who want to allow sipping at schools in Antigua. Drawing thousands who want to learn Castellano while sipping at schools in the Piton region. It's beautifully authentic. Or the bird-watching tours in the Piton region, where ornithologals get to tick off rare species. Wow. It's less about organized clubs in the Western sense.
That's so true, Leo. It's a hands-on, heart on your sleeve kind of place. Oh, and for the extreme adventurers, imagine hiking up an active volcano, like Pat KYA, and boasting marshmallows of our actual lover. Now, that's a campfire story that would make my marshmallow burning mishap seem truly insignificant. Oops. Speaking of unique interests, how do you see Syria fitting into this? How?
Well, Mira, that's where the conversation shifts significantly. Historically, Syria was a cultural and intellectual powerhouse, a crossroads of empires and ideas. Wow. Damascus, Aleppo, these cities were once beacons for scholars, artisans, and poets. You could find ancient Sufi orders, vibrant souks with specific guilds for everything from goldsmithing to spice blending. Oh, meeting specific interests back then was just a rate. It was the foundation of society.
Well, 8,000-year-old debate club. Oh, it probably just nod politely and try to blend in, then ask if there's any baklava involved. But seriously, what about today? Is it still possible for people to pursue these kinds of niche interests or engage in community activities now?
That's the critical question, isn't it? While the spirit of those interests undoubtedly endures, the ability to openly unsafely pursue them has been severely impacted. Ouch. Many historical sites and cultural institutions have suffered, and the focus for most people is on rebuilding their lives and communities. However, the resilience of the Syrian people is immense. You'll still find artisans secretly practicing ancient crafts. However, the resilience of the Syrian people is immense. You'll still find artisans secretly practicing ancient crafts, poets sharing verses in quiet gatherings, and communities maintaining.
You're right, Leo. The human spirit to create and connect is truly powerful. Wow. It's like finding a tiny flower pushing through concrete. Oh, in Guatemala, you have groups dedicated to preserving indigenous languages or even unique dance forms. It's an outward celebration of heritage. In Syria, those interests might be held more intimately, perhaps within families or close-knit groups, as a way to maintain identity and hope.
Absolutely. Guatemala offers accessibility to these interests, largely driven by tourism and a relatively stable environment. So if you're into learning marimba, you can probably find a teacher fairly easily. For Syria, while the deep roots of intellectual and artistic pursuits remain, the rate at which foreigners or even locals can safely access or engage in them is unfortunately much lower due to the ongoing situation. Ouch! It's a tragic irony, given the country's profound cultural wealth.
This really underscores that specific interests aren't just hobbies, they're vital threads of culture and human connection. Wow. So, whether you're climbing a volcano in Guatemala or preserving a traditional craft in Syria, these passions keep communities vibrant. And on that reflective note, Leo, it feels like we've shared everything there is to share, from safety to culinary adventures, and now, specific interests. Hmm.
Indeed, Mira. It's been an incredible journey exploring these fascinating countries. This episode marks our farewell for now. After sharing off until our next comparison podcast. Please follow the Jet Off AI YouTube channel for more episodes like this. Please follow the Jet Off AI YouTube channel for more episodes like this. Hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day.
Hey there, world travelers and fellow laugh enthusiasts. Mira here, and can you believe we've reached our final stop on this epic comparison journey? Ooh, it's like finding the last piece of chocolate in the box, a bittersweet moment. And speaking of sweet, Leo, you're still trying to sweet talk the coffee machine into giving you a free refill, aren't you?
Mira, a true artist knows how to appreciate their craft, which in my case is excellent coffee and observing the absurdities of life. But yes, this is our grand finale for now, and what a ride it's been. We've poked fun at traditions, admired unique quirks, and perhaps even settled a few imaginary debates about where you should move next. Today's final deep dive is into the right of meeting specific interests in Guatemala and Syria.
Wow, what a fascinating topic, especially for other countries today. When I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately jumps to vibrant textiles, ancient Mayan ruins, and seriously good coffee. For someone interested in archaeology or sustainable farming, Guatemala is practically a pilgrimage site. What do you think, Leo? Have you ever tried to join a traditional weaving workshop, perhaps hoping to turn it into a stand-up pro?
Mira, I can barely tie my shoelaces without creating a Gordian knot. Solo might be pushing it out. But you hit on something important. Guatemala genuinely caters to niche interests. Think about the Spanish language schools in Antigua, drawing thousands who want to learn Castellano while sipping exquisite coffee. Or with the bird-watching tours in the Piton region, where ornithologists get to tick off rare species. Wow, it's less about ornithologists get to tick off rare species.
That's so true, Leo. It's a hands-on, heart on your sleeve kind of place. Oh, and for the extreme adventurers, imagine hiking up an active volcano, like Pakewaya, and roasting marshmallows over actual lava. No, that's a campfire story that would make my marshmallow burning mishap seem truly insignificant. Speaking of unique interests, how do you see Syria fitting into this?
That's where the conversation shifts significantly, Mira. Historically, Syria was a cultural and intellectual powerhouse, a crossroads of empires and ideas. Wow! Damascus, Aleppo, these cities were once beacons for scholars, artisans, and poets. You could find ancient Sufi orders, vibrant souks with specific guilds for everything from goldsmithing to spice blending. Oh, meeting specific interests back then was just a rate. It was the foundation of society. Imagine a debate club that's been running for 1,000.
Wow, 8,000-year-old debate club. Oh, it'd probably just nod politely and try to blend in, then ask if there's any baklava involved. But seriously, what about today? Is it still possible for people to pursue these kinds of niche interests or engage in community activities now?
That's the critical question, isn't it? While the spirit of those interests undoubtedly endures, the ability to openly and safely pursue them has been severely impacted. Ouch! Many historical sites and cultural institutions have suffered, and the focus for most people is on rebuilding their lives and communities,